This is 50 Venus flytrap plants, and in this video, I'm gonna put 1,000 flies in the same container as them. Will the sheer number of flies trick the traps, causing them to close, or are the flies just simply cooked?
Yeah, I don't know, but that's why I bought this.
This is 1,000 fly larvae. Yeah, might look extremely nasty, but over the next week, as long as I feed them food, they should all turn into flies so I can do this test.
So while we wait for these guys to turn into flies, obviously I have all of these Venus flytraps, but I also have tons of other carnivorous plants that you may have never even seen before, meaning I'm gonna be able to do tons of different tests in this video. It's gonna be super cool.
And for test number 1, I wanna show you guys the smallest Venus flytraps.
Now, I know it may sound stupid, but I promise you how they work and catch insects is actually really insane. Let me show you how they work.
And yeah, it's not a joke how small these things are, because when compared to normal Venus flytraps, the jaws are about 10 times smaller. And in fact, they're kind of cute, to be honest.
But since these are minuscule, the normal prey I feed in my videos is not gonna cut it. Yeah, sorry cricket, you get to live another day. That's why instead, I got literally the smallest thing available.
These are flightless fruit flies, which if you've seen my channel before, you know they're pretty much the most useless animal. Cause seriously bro, how are you a fly that doesn't have the ability to fly? That doesn't make any sense. But anyways, I put the smallest Venus flytraps in the testing enclosure, then I put one of these flies inside to see if he'd get caught. Start the timer. Now this fly didn't waste any time, because it immediately walked straight up to one of the Venus flytrap pots and then started to walk all over the tops of the jaws, absolutely risking his life. You may already know this, but normal Venus flytraps work by having these super tiny trigger hairs inside of them that when a bug or something touches them, it snaps shut. But these traps are obviously the smallest in the world. Because of that, they have extremely small trigger hairs. And I'm talking so small that if I zoom in like 100x on this footage, they're so thin, my camera can't even pick them up. And I guess the trigger hairs were quite literally so thin that every time this flightless fruit fly walked inside the jaw of a trap, the jaw didn't close at all, and the fly was able to just walk out. I mean, it kind of makes sense. These flightless fruit flies weigh about 0.0003 grams. So yeah, I guess the traps quite literally can't even be triggered by how light their weight is.
Yeah, clearly the fruit flies aren't gonna work. So instead, I got the world's smallest cricket instead to test. Let's see if this works any better.
And oh boy, let me just tell you, things were a lot more interesting this time around. Because once again, the cricket walked straight up to one of the trap pots and started climbing all over the tops once again. But this time, quite literally within 30 seconds, the cricket happened to put his face up to the lip of one of the Venus flytraps. You may also already know this, but these plants produce a special kind of nectar around the lips of their jaws to lure insects in like this cricket. And you can see it was working pretty well, because this cricket was just absolutely slurping this nectar up. But he was getting a bit too distracted, because he then stepped into the trap, probably stepping on the micro trigger hairs, which then caused the jaws of it to close. But the cricket was too fast, and he was barely able to make it out with his life. Dang, that was a close call, but you can see how quickly that can all happen. And yeah, don't worry guys, because it was only a few minutes later when the cricket did the same exact thing. He walked up to another jaw, walked straight into it, and yeah, this time the trap closed on him while he was starting to walk out, leaving half of his body now sticking out of the trap. Even though these are the smallest Venus flytraps in the world, they trap insects nearly just as well as the fully grown ones. It's pretty interesting. And yeah, while I wait for those 1,000 flies to hatch so we can do the final test, in the meantime, I want to show you some other insane carnivorous plants that you may have never seen before, with the second one being sundews.
Yep, everyone knows what Venus flytraps are, but not everyone knows what a sundew is, but they're actually pretty cool. Let me show you what they do.
So obviously, like flytraps, sundews are also a carnivorous plant, except instead of having jaws, it has these long stems with these little red hairs on the top of them. But on each of these little red hairs is a special kind of sticky glue it produces that will make it so when a fly or any other insect touches it, it gets permanently stuck because of how sticky it is.
And when an insect gets stuck on here, the trap does something insane to be able to consume the insect, which I'll show you very soon when it obviously traps an insect.
So yeah, I got multiple of these sundew plants, and I even got this slightly different kind of sundew called an octopus plant. That will be cool to see if this can catch any insects as well. So let's get these in the testing chamber.
And for this, I think I'll be using a cricket once again, because they're literally perfect. They can just climb up the side of the stems and yeah, just get stuck. This should be fun to watch. Let's put this dude inside.
So yeah, once again, I just started with one of these guys, but if this guy gets caught fast, I'll be adding way more inside of here. Anyways, so this cricket for the first minute kind of just wandered around the walls of the enclosure, but it wasn't long until he started heading towards the sundews. Now you see the sticky glue glue that this plant produces is actually a type of nectar, which smells and tastes great to the insects. So yeah, just like how Venus flytraps lure insects in with their nectar, these traps do the same thing, because this cricket then decided to start climbing up the stem. The only thing is though that he ended up stopping right before the sticky part, and that's actually because of his antenna. You see, crickets have these pretty long antennas that help them navigate and detect danger before running into it, and this guy's antenna actually ended up getting stuck in the sticky nectar part. But using its mouth, it was able to pull the antenna back and then started to lick all the nectar off of it. Yeah, and I'm not kidding, this cricket really just sat here for like 30 minutes, constantly licking his antenna, then putting it back into the sticky nectar, and then licking it back up. He was kind of outsmarting this carnivorous plant and just getting its nectar for free. So I'm not gonna lie, I just tried to push him towards it with my tweezers since he clearly wasn't gonna do it on his own. And yeah, he just kind of ended up falling off.
Yo, what the heck? I was just trying to record that cricket and I just realized there's a jumping spider in here. Do you see that? It's on the little octopus plant. Is it stuck?
Yeah, this jumping spider just happened to wander into this enclosure by accident. I guess he was just living somewhere in my house. But since he was here, I figured I'd just watch him to see if he would get caught by the traps. And pretty quickly, he started to climb the stems of the trap and got up to the sticky part. But yeah, he was kind of too smart for this trap too and turned around the second he realized it was sticky. But it was pretty cool to watch this guy just jump around the plants. However, he never really ended up getting trapped and he ended up just climbing out of the enclosure.
All right, guys, I'm not gonna lie. This cricket, I've been trying to record him getting eaten for like 2 hours now. And every time right before going on the sticky part, he just stops and cleans his antenna. And yeah, he just turns around and never actually goes on the sticky part. He's too smart for this. So yeah, let me take this guy out.
Instead, I actually just got out the flightless fruit flies again, because apparently this is actually Sundew's favorite insect. And yeah, I just dumped a few on the sand, and it wasn't long until some of them started to climb all over the stems and eventually started getting stuck all over the different sticky parts. I even went and just dumped a crazy amount of these flies all over the top of the Sundew plants to show you guys exactly how cool Sundews really are. Because obviously, now you can see the sticky parts of the plants are just completely covered in flightless fruit flies. Now, if you're wondering how this plant actually eats the flies, well, this footage shows how. As you can see, it uses each of its red hairs to basically curl around the prey. And once all of those curl around it, the stem itself also starts to curl around the prey. This will basically ensure the fly has a 0% chance of escaping, while the plant releases basically an acid to consume it. Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
So yeah, it's pretty cool to see these things work. All these flies are just gonna turn into food for these plants very soon.
Alright, there's still one more major carnivorous plant type that I haven't shown yet. They're called pitcher plants.
Yep, this plant can also eat insects. And actually how it does it is probably the most brutal out of all of them. Let me show you.
Yep, like I said, these are called pitcher plants. And similar to the last plant, they have pretty long stems that go up. But the difference is this time at the top, there's this little trapdoor leaf thing that if you look is actually covering a hole that leads directly down to a pit of acid at the bottom of the stem. Yep, these traps have this little hole here that's lined with a super slippery nectar on the inside. So whenever an insect walks inside, they'll slip into the acid at the bottom, and yeah.
And what's really cool is if you actually look inside of this pitcher plant, since it's kind of small and shallow, you can actually see the pool of acid at the bottom. And it actually looks like there's a couple little flies and stuff in there, which it looks like it's actually already dissolving. So yeah, it'd be cool to see some crickets or something following these. Let's test it out.
I didn't even need to use an enclosure this time because I knew this was going to be an extremely fast test. Because immediately after placing the cricket on this first pitcher plant, it started to climb along the sides of the red pitcher. As you can see, the inside of the plant is lined with these downward pointing hairs. This is to make it even more slippery and hard to escape. And yeah, it's kind of funny to see how fast this all happens, but the next time the cricket went to the opening of this plant, it straight up just slipped in right away. Nah, this dude had no clue this plant has evolved over millions of years to just be able to eat them this fast. Yeah, and as you can see on this footage that I recorded on my phone, he was now just sitting at the bottom of this pool of acid. Over the next few days, it'll dissolve him and turn him into nutrients for this plant to grow even stronger and larger. Nice.
And yeah, that's really all there is to these pitcher plants. They're not really the most interesting thing ever. But I actually have some great news, guys, because if you look in this container, you can see many of my flies are starting to hatch.
And that means we can finally start doing some massive scale Venus flytrap tests and eventually test as many flies as I can against all of my Venus flytraps to see who wins. Let's start very simple though with 5 Venus flytraps versus a single fly. And let's see if this fly can get trapped in under a minute. Now I know you may be thinking, bruh, Terra Green, I don't care care about one fly. This is boring. Well, don't worry, because this literally only lasted like 20 seconds. Because immediately this fly started to crawl up the side of a pot, and of course he made his way immediately into a jaw, triggered one of the hairs, and it closed directly onto him. Yup, flies are basically the one thing Venus flytraps are the best at catching. I mean, they're called Venus flytraps for a reason.
Anyways, I got the tank where the final test will be taking place, right here, obviously.
And I didn't waste any time. I just got out the flies that I've been hatching, and I put them straight into this enclosure so we could get this final test started. Quickly, I removed the lid and started the timer. Let the test begin. Now, immediately, a couple of the flies started to fly out of the container, and others started to walk out of the sides. Now, there was something weird though, because while the container had a decent amount of movement in it, only like 10 of the flies were actually leaving the container over the 4-hour time lapse here. Yeah, basically all the flies were staying in there. So I decided to just take the paper towel out that they were all on and tried to just shake off as many as I could onto the Venus flytraps. And obviously, this meant that a few of the flies were now scattered all over the traps and were actually starting to get trapped. But most of them were just being super inactive, barely moving, and not flying. I guess because they were just newly hatched flies and it takes a while for them to become normal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is kind of a fail. Basically, none of the flies are flying around, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish this.
But don't worry, because my YouTube friend Flytrap Films recorded a test with an insane amount of flies super similar to this, and he wanted me to show you it. In it, you can see he has a Venus flytrap plant out, and also a bunch of rotten meat in order to attract the flies. Yeah, and it worked really well, because instantly tons of flies started to gather around this plant, and you guessed it, started to get trapped. I mean, when you have this many flies, it's a given that tons are just gonna get trapped right away. And what's so crazy is that sometimes so many would gather on some of the jaws before they close, causing up to 6 flies to get trapped in the same jaw at the same time. What? Flytrap Films himself said that this is the most flies he's ever seen get caught at once. Also, some bonus footage for you guys. Hey, you remember those pitcher plants from earlier? Flytrap Films also did the same test with a massive pitcher plant to show you guys how effective these things are at catching flying insects. And this plant literally just looks like a vacuum cleaner sucking up all the flies, which in a way it kind of is, because every time a flying insect flaps its wings above the opening in this plant, it creates a weird kind of vacuum effect with the wind, causing the bug to actually get pulled down into it. And yup, after not too much time, this thing just caught so many flies, and it was literally just starting to overflow. That is probably the craziest performance from a carnivorous plant that I have ever seen. Thank you, Flytrap Films, for letting me show you this footage.
I'm gonna buy that tank, completely revamp it into the best fish tank ever, and save the fish and frogs that are somehow still alive inside of it. So first, I had to, of course, drive out to the cellar and fork up the $20 needed to buy it. You see, normally a fish tank for $20 would be a good deal, but this thing has a whole list of problems. But anyways, it's mine now, so we're just gonna go take it home and, you know, run some diagnostics. That we're just gonna see if these fish are gonna be able to survive. Let's go. As soon as I got home, I got out some water testing strips, and after swishing them around, I figured out that there was a bunch of problems with the current water. I needed to get the fish and frogs out of there as soon as possible. So I quickly got a temporary tank, built it up, and added some healthy quick start bacteria to make it safe for the fish. And of course, I can't scoop the fish out of this straight up sewage water. Yeah, I can't even see through it. So I quickly set up a filter, and after a few hours, I was able to see through the water. All right, it's 100% clear now, and if there's fish in here, I'm gonna scoop it out with this net. Oh, did you just see that right there? It's a good thing these are still alive. Let me get you out. Thankfully, the frogs were still okay, so I scooped them out. And eventually, I even found the fish all still in good health. I identified the frog species as African dwarf frogs, which are able to survive fully underwater. And the fish was the species of black coolie loach, which is this weird snake-looking thing. But of course, now it's time to focus on transforming this. I honestly can't get over how bad this is, like genuinely, who built this? And to start the process, this thing needed to be cleaned. So I drained out the sewage water and got rid of it. And of course, I took everything else out because, yeah, we don't really want any of this nasty stuff. If I'm being honest, this is already 100 times better than that garbage we started with. But we're about to make this 1,000 times better. So let's give those creatures a new home. Anyway, step 1 was to buy a lot of money's worth of new supplies. Oh my god, $400. This is gonna be an insane build. And get them delivered to my house. But for step 2, we gotta actually get to building and, There we go. And to start the build, I'm gonna recreate that plastic arch thing that was originally in the tank, and I'm gonna base the entire theme of the new tank around that. Just obviously, I'm gonna be using real rocks, not plastic trash pet store rocks that are dirty. Yeah, this is so bad. Get this out of here. Anyways, the build was pretty simple. You just place rocks in and then glue them together, and then repeat that like a billion times. And after literally 4 hours, the cave arch structure was done. And I know, it might look like trash right now with all that exposed foam and stuff, but trust me, it's gonna look good soon. And speaking of looking good, let's get to the next part where we add in the floor and decorations. First, I'll do the floor, which I'm mostly gonna be making out of this aqua soil stuff. But I also kept some of the original soil from the trash tank because while it was dirty, it was actually some pretty good soil. But of course, it needed to be cleaned so I wasn't getting deadly bacteria and viruses in my new tank. So to kill all that stuff, I decided to boil it in some boiling water. Yeah. Alright, it's been boiling for a little bit and it's probably killed all the bacteria and stuff. But I was thinking this kind of looks like soup, so I'm just gonna go and see if my mom will try and drink it or something. I don't know, let's see. I made some soup. Do you want to try it?
What kind of soup is it? It's dirt.
No, it's mushroom.
Okay. Is it really mushroom?
Yeah. No, like actually it is. You can just...
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's raw.
No.
Yeah, it is.
Is mushroom. Okay, I guess it doesn't really look like soup. She didn't fall for it. Anyways, I added it in and then poured a layer of gravel on top. The floor was now finished, and next up was the decorations, which basically meant I was just gonna add some plants and stuff. Yeah. For the plants, I got a delivery that cost $100 from some aquarium website, and I got straight to planting them. First, I covered the whole top of the cave in this moss stuff to make it look like grass was growing on top. Then for the rest of the plants, I just, put them around the aquarium, as you do. Finally, I scattered some rocks and wood around. I just, forgot to record that part, so, just imagine this is footage of me doing that. Okay, the whole base of the tank is now complete, but this is honestly kinda average. Rocks, plants, every aquarium has that. And I'm transforming this into the best aquarium to give justice to the poor frogs and fish, meaning I still have a lot of work to do. Next up on the list is to add custom technology in here that'll make the tank actually cool. And the first technology I got is this little water pump. And to show you what it does, let me fill the tank up with water, plug it in, and yeah, boy, it makes bubbles. Okay, maybe it's not that cool, but it is important to have this so oxygen can spread around the tank.
Nice.
Anyways, this next technology is actually cool. This is an automatic fish feeder. Basically, I just gotta set it up on the side, fill it up with all types of tasty food, and now I just press this button on the side and it'll drop food. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Or I can set it to be automatic every 12 or 24 hours. But there's no fish in here, so let me just take this food out so it doesn't get moldy and stuff. Okay, now for the third technology. This one is actually the coolest thing in the world. So basically, I was just wandering around Walmart yesterday and saw this little robo fish that apparently can swim around in the water by itself. That is too cool to pass up on. So of course, I bought half of their stock. And on the packaging, it says it even changes colors in the water. That's sick. But I don't really know how this works, so I guess I'll just press this button and, oh, the fins are moving. Okay, let me put this in the water. Wait, bro, look at this thing. This is actually pretty cool. Wait, I gotta get these other ones in here. Let's see. Okay, all the fish are in here, and this just looks like an aquarium now. I'm not even gonna lie. Bro, the actual fish are gonna be so confused when they see these ones in here. That is gonna be so funny. Anyways, for now, I'm gonna take them out, and later I'll be adding them back in with the live fish to see how the live fish react. Now, the final technology, and this, to be honest, isn't anything special. It's just a water filter and a water heater, which is just some basic necessities to make sure our fish and frogs are able to thrive. And speaking of those guys, it's almost time to see how they're gonna react to the new transformed tank. But before then, I'm gonna first add in some friends for them. And I've got a lot of stuff. The first species I added in was a bunch of ghost shrimp, which, are shrimp. They clean up the tank and stuff. Thanks, guys. But actually, this is a pretty cool species because as you can see, they're kind of see-through. And because of that, you can literally see stuff inside of their body. Like this guy just ate some moss. And because of that, you can see some green inside of his body. Wow. The next species I added in was 2 new African dwarf frogs and 5 more coolie loaches. And yes, these are the same species of fish and frogs that were in the original tank. And that's because those species that we already have are all social animals, and it wasn't ideal to only have the 2 frogs and 1 fish that we started with. The final species I added in was some neon tetras, just because, well, they look cool and they swim around schools and they look cool. Yeah, well, all the friends are added now, so of course it's time to add the original frogs and fish inside. Be free. Okay, well, that's kind of anticlimactic. Well, they're in here now, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna live an amazing life, so that's good. But now that it's transformed, this is the best part of the video, where I'll be doing stuff like seeing how the fish react to the robot fish, and also I'll even be hatching live prey from eggs to feed the frogs and fish some live food. And speaking of that live prey, let's get to hatching that now, because it's gonna take a little while to get those hatched. These are brine shrimp eggs, which to start the hatching process, we're basically gonna get a pot, throw a bunch of ingredients in there like a soup, and put in a heater, a light, and a pump. And yeah, basically these shrimp are gonna hatch in about a day, probably. I don't know if I set this up right, but I guess we'll see. In the meantime, I had to, of course, test out the robot fish in the aquarium, so, be free. Right after adding them, the first fish to encounter them was the little school of neon tetras. At first, they seemed pretty chill about it, just ignoring it and going about their normal life. That was until one of the robot fish started to rush at them at max speed, and, they all got extremely scared. One of the frogs was also chilling on top of the cave when another robot fish came swimming in towards them. Yeah, he was not gonna have any of that. But the thing is, most of the fish were inside of the cave, so I wasn't able to see their reaction. So, of course, I put all the robot fish inside of it. And, yeah, they kind of all got stuck, and I couldn't record any of the fish reactions because it was too dark. And since I couldn't even reach the robot fish to get them out, they're just gonna be a permanent addition to the cave. Nice. Anyways, I let a day pass so that I could come back to the brine shrimp eggs being hatched. And while it looked like 99% of the eggs hadn't hatched, if we zoom in a bunch on my bad quality iPhone camera, you can see thousands of little dots swimming around. Those are the brine shrimp. Listen, I didn't say they were gonna be big, okay? So I got my water sucker, sucked them up, and was ready to feed the fish. I first put a little bit of the shrimp right next to a lone neon tetra, and within seconds he started going crazy. It even attracted the attention of some of the other tetras, and soon multiple were sucking up all the tasty shrimp. Next up, I put some of the brine shrimp near a frog, and at first he seemed to not care, but then he started to, of course, devour them too. I guess these brine shrimps taste good. Dang. Finally, I put some of the brine shrimp near a coolie loach, and I was expecting this guy to start eating them too, but he kind of just, yeah, he just swam away into the darkness of a cave. Bruh. Well, even though I found this aquarium as a piece of garbage, I'm happy I was able to completely transform it and give a new home to the poor fish.
I just found this video where a guy named Coyote Peterson lets a black widow crawl all over his arm. Watching this made me think that maybe black widows weren't as vicious as I thought, and maybe I could keep one as a pet.
I guess this should be the Black Widow. And I genuinely think this is the most venomous pet I've kept on the channel. But anyways, let's go open this up.
So I brought it to my table and opened the package up. After carefully taking out the packing material, I then took out the container that had a Black Widow spider inside.
Oh, nah, here it is. A literal Black Widow. But I did just figure something out because apparently I didn't order just one of these. If you look down in this box, I actually ordered 2 more. Yeah, apparently I accidentally placed the order for a 3-pack. So now I have 3 Black Widows.
But I wanted to take a closer look, so I opened up a container to let a spider out. And I guess it was a bit dizzy because instantly it fell on its back to reveal that iconic red hourglass shape, which warns you that this spider is nothing to mess around with. It has a potent bite.
Oh, shoot, it's trying to escape. Put it in the container, okay. Whew. I gotta be more careful with these things, man.
But these 3 spiders aren't gonna spin webs in these tiny containers. They were gonna need a proper enclosure, which I needed to build by first covering a bunch of spray foam with dirt and wood chip stuff to make the background. But in the middle, I put in this rock background and spray foamed normal rocks to it. You see, I'm gonna separate the enclosure into a forest, a cave, and a home interior to see where black widows like to make webs and hunt the most. For the home interior part, I got a piece of styrofoam and painted a brick pattern onto it to, you know, make it look like a brick wall like a lot of homes have, and so I spray foamed that in, and the background was now complete.
And now we gotta do the web building bases. Basically what that means is we just put sticks and stuff so the spiders can spin their webs in here.
To start, I'm gonna lay down a simple substrate across the entire enclosure that I'll be able to customize to each environment. But first of all, the forest, and as I'm sure you can imagine, we're gonna put some wood in here, just enough on the 2 sides for a solid web to be made in between. And then I'm even gonna glue some moss coming down from the ends of the branches so it sort of looks like leaves on a tree.
And then I'm gonna get this bag of leaves that I bought. And don't ask me why I didn't just pick them up from outside.
I don't know why I bought these. But anyways, with those, I scattered them along the bottom, so it looked like a forest floor with all the fallen leaves everywhere. And last but not least, I got some tiny rocks and scattered them around too. Just a few, because I gotta save most for the cave. And speaking of the cave, we're gonna start right away by laying down some rocks, because that's pretty much all they got. But as you can see in this photo, there's actually a bunch of these pointy rocks called stalagmites. And I think they would work perfectly in my enclosure, so let me get some. Alright, so I've got a big rock and a hammer right there, so I guess let me just try to carve some of those stalagmites out of this. So I guess I'll just go and try and hit it. I don't really know if this is gonna work, but it's gonna break. Eventually, after a bit of hitting, I got a few pieces that when connected sorta looked like stalagmites, so I went and attached them together with spray foam. And then using more spray foam, I stuck them all into place pointing up in the cave section of the enclosure. Finally, I went and sprinkled some normal colored rocks around and then some different colored rocks around because, yeah, we literally just put rocks everywhere for this section. Alright, once the spray foam dries, I'm gonna go in and paint it, but for now, let's work on the home interior section. And to start, I've got this carpet-like material, which I'm gonna cut out to shape, and then I'm just gonna go and put it in there, and boom. Now I need to get some mini home furniture in here that the spider will be able to spin his webs from. And my only idea for how I can get that is to build it with some Legos. So yeah, let's get building, baby. First of all, using black bricks, I stacked them up to make this little lampshade thing. Then with some red bricks, I made a tiny little couch. Now a chair made of brown bricks. Finally, I just took the rest of my bricks to make a randomly color assorted red and white shelf. Yeah, I'm a master builder, as you can tell. Anyways, I went and put each of those inside and even got some little dollhouse furniture to fill in the dead space, and boom, shakalaka. That's what I call a home house interior. I know a lot of black widows love to live inside houses, so one of them should definitely like this place. But the next step on the list is to get some plants. Put the two land plants in the forest section, which as you can see, I ended up getting a beautiful red plant to match the red on black widows. Then I took apart the plant from Home Depot and glued the vines coming down from the top of the cave section. Finally, I glued some more moss all along the forest section because I felt like it wasn't green enough. And then I added a bit of this dead type of fern moss along parts of the cave because I felt like it matched pretty well. Oh, and I almost forgot the most important part, the stupid AI generated pictures for the house interior. So I cut them out and glued them along sides of the brick wall. There were many great works of art, like a black widow flying in the sky with wings, a black widow dancing in a disco room, and a black widow eating a male after mating, which yes, they actually do that in the wild. Now you see in the wild, black widows are actually cannibals towards other female black widows, which means my 3 black widows cannot be able to access each other, or, you know, they'd probably eat each other. So I've got these acrylic sheets, which should act as good separators. So I went and measured them to size and then cut them out. There we go, that fits perfectly. And now last but not least, I'm gonna put in one of these reptile foggers. Basically, when you turn this dial, it spits a bunch of fog out the end of this tube. Black widows love a high humidity to make their webs, so this should encourage them to do that quickly. And well, I would say this enclosure is now 100% complete, but that does mean I gotta actually let the black widows loose in here, which I'm kind of scared to do, but let's just do it. And as you can see, I've got the 3 black widows in their own little containers. So I've got the first one. Let's let this guy loose into the forest. Then I'm gonna put the second one into the cave section like that. Then finally, the 3rd black widow in the home interior section. And while all the spiders were now in their new home, I took an interest to the one in the forest area. You see, this one immediately started to crawl all around her new home and even made her way up to the roof of the enclosure. There on the roof, you can see she started to walk around with a little strand of silk coming out the end of the abdomen. She was already building a web. Spiders, of course, do this to catch prey, and black widows in specific have some of the strongest silk out of any spider, which is somehow produced in these little silk glands that they have. Anyways, I left the black widow to continue with that, and the next day I came back and opened up the top of the enclosure. You could see the area where she was constructing the web, and now she was hiding in this little crevice. So much for building this enclosure. I built all this forest area just for the spider to make her web right in this little area. Well, at least she has something, because that means now I can try and feed her a bunch of different types of food to see which they like the most, starting with mealworms. Now I wanted to start small, and as you can see, these mealworms I bought are absolutely minuscule. They're barely the size of the tip of my finger, but hopefully the spider will still like them. Using some tweezers, I dropped a mealworm straight into the spider's web, and immediately it started to squirm around to try and escape. But spider webs are specifically designed to keep little insects like this stuck in them. All the wiggling around made the black widow come awake, and soon it even crawled out, only to walk right by the mealworm and run away. In fact, this black widow tried to make a grand escape and even webbed down the side of my table onto the floor.
Oh, no. Do not go under the table. Do not go under the table.
Anyways, I ended up scooping it into a container where I then dropped another mealworm in front of him, and once again, he didn't want to eat it.
Okay, well, clearly this black widow is not trying to eat any mealworms, so instead, I've got a bag of some tiny little crickets.
And these I'm gonna feed to the second black widow in the cave area. Now, if you remember, I put this spider in the enclosure on this little plastic lid where I already had a web. And since putting it in 2 days ago, it still hasn't moved at all. It might be dead actually. But anyways, I put in some crickets to see if it would eat. And literally right away, one of the crickets jumped towards the spider and jolted him awake, which I guess was a good sign because the spider was now finally moving. But when I tried to bring the cricket back, it scared the spider and it ran away into the cave. I almost lost track of the spider until I came across her again on top of the enclosure where she had somehow escaped to. I tried to feed her a cricket once again, but she just was not having it, so I scooped her back into the plastic container. Well, it looks like this black widow is also not eating, which usually would mean I would go test the third and final food source, which was gonna be just crickets, but a bit bigger. But I kind of have bad news because I don't really have a spider to feed these to. Yes, you heard that right. Since putting the third spider into the house interior section 2 days ago, I haven't seen it at all. It literally escaped my enclosure. And now, not only did I have one missing, but I also had 2 more that weren't eating.
This is genuinely the worst idea I've had for a video. Like, pet black widow. Like, what am I thinking? One is escaped and is literally crawling around my garage. There's only one way I can make this up for the content. I gotta let the black widow crawl on my arm, just like I saw Coyote Peterson do at the start of the video. So, let's not waste any time. Let me get my mom in here. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
All right, I'm bringing you in here today because I got a special job for you. As you know, I always keep the weirdest pets. And can you guess what pet's in here based off the decorations?
Oh my gosh. Is it a black widow?
Yeah, it's a black widow.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you see those paintings on the wall?
Yeah, I do.
A black widow? Isn't that cool?
No.
Why? Okay, I got them onto this little tray for you. And basically, you can see it right there. What do you think?
No.
Say hi.
No. I wouldn't keep that as a pet.
Why? It's cute. Well, I did say I have a job for you. So can you hold the camera?
Oh my gosh, you are not gonna put this on you.
Here, hold the camera. All right, as you see, we got the black widow in a nice little clear container. And I'm just gonna start by literally putting it on my sleeve like this until it crawls out.
You see, the plan is to have it crawl onto my sleeve, and then from there, it'll crawl onto my hand. So I basically just waited until it started to crawl out.
I have to be super calm right now.
But as you could have guessed, of course things went wrong. Because as you can see, it just started to grasp onto the edge of the container and not let go at all. I was probably making it pretty mad, so I quickly transferred it to a piece of cardboard.
Okay, so I decided to just put them onto a piece of cardboard, and I'll let them crawl out here.
And after gathering together a bunch of courage, I just moved the cardboard in front of my hand to let it happen.
Okay, I'm gonna do it in 3, 2, 1.
Lord Father, Jesus, please. Oh God, Lord Father, please. Okay, it's time to go off. It's time to go off, Lord Father.
Oh,
Oh, that was so nerve-wracking. Oh my gosh, how did you feel doing that?
the heart was going 500 beats a second.
Well, there you have it. Probably the stupidest. Have a good day, or night, or afternoon, or morning, and goodbye, and subscribe too. It may take you a couple of seconds to realize that there's a camouflaged mantis here, but that's all the time it needs to grab you and eat you alive. Yep, there's mantises that have learned to imitate flowers so well that they grow literal petals on their arms, all just to trick bugs into walking near them.
So hey, I guess let me buy them. Add to cart.
And because of their fantastic one-day delivery, the next day I got the package. Inside was 4 little containers, each with their own mantis. There was 2 of these pink and white flower mantises. There was 1 dead moss-looking mantis, and also 1 black mantis, which doesn't really blend in with anything in nature, so I don't know why this was included in the camouflage pack, but I'll make it work. For the builds, I'm going to take out 4 enclosures and start spraying the backs of them, all of course with some spray foam, which I then covered in dirt and moss, and I did that to every every single enclosure. I then even went and added some little spray foam mounds on the backs of each background so they all had some depth and variation to them. Now from here, I'm going to create the camouflage bases of each enclosure, starting first with the two pink and white flower mantises. For these guys, I started by filling up their enclosures with dirt and attaching some smaller sticks hanging along the back of it. I eventually want to get pink and white flowers all over this, but for now, we're just making the base. I then used some of this green moss to hang off the ends of all of the sticks. We don't want to use too much of this stuff though, because the mantises don't really blend in that well with it. Then for the start enclosure, we're going to put in those same dirt and sticks, but as you can see, this mantis evolved to have more of a pattern that matched this tan dead moss. So this time, I put a ton of that moss everywhere along the branches. Then for the floor, you guessed it, more tan stuff like dead leaves, some more moss, sticks, and pine cones.
But I feel like this enclosure is still kind of missing something, and to be honest, I've kind of ran out of all of the tan materials. So I'm just gonna head outside, and as you can see back here, there's a ton of these like dead flower things, but they look exactly like the mantis. So let me pick off a few and take them inside.
But you see, I don't want to just shove these into the enclosure because there's a chance that there's some deadly bacteria and parasites on them. So to kill all that stuff, I preheated my oven to 250 degrees, lined the sticks up on a baking sheet, and slid it inside. Basically, because the temperature is so high, it's gonna kill all the bacteria and stuff on here, so we can put this in the enclosure.
All right, it's been in there for like 30 minutes. So let's just pull this out, and oh yes, it's looking nice and crispy. Maybe a little too crispy. That one looks like it just caught on fire, actually.
Anyways, I put those around the enclosure, and then it was done. Now, finally, onto the black mantis's base. And as you know, this guy doesn't really blend in that well with normal stuff, because like nothing in nature is black, really.
But I'm not gonna let that stop me, because I actually have an idea.
So what I did was go outside and started to saw a few branches off of some trees. Once I had collected a few of them, I laid them down along a metal sheet as they were now ready for my experiment.
Everyone, say hello to a blowtorch. Yes, this is real. Apparently, you can just buy one at Walmart for $20, and you don't need a license or anything. I don't really know how to use this thing, but basically, I just want to burn the wood so it's black. So, I guess let's just try it out.
So, that's what I did. Basically, the sticks catch on fire for just a second, which is just enough time for them to turn black. I also decided to burn them one by one in order to not accidentally start a giant bonfire in my house. I then put all this black wood around the enclosure and kind of just stuffed the larger pieces in the top of the sticks, and there we go.
There we go. Looks pretty good now, but I think we can go even darker. And we do that, of course, by once again getting the blowtorch, and we're just gonna go along the background and just kind of set it to fire. Oh, shoots. Oh, I gotta be careful.
To all of you watching, make sure not to try this at home if you're not a trained professional. And if you're wondering, no, I'm not a trained professional, and I'm literally doing this in my house, so,
All right, there we go. It kind of just looks like a forest fire went off here, but...
Anyways, the next step is to put some plants in here. And this is where the camouflage ability of each mantis is really gonna come alive. Got out all the plants and started by just putting them in the first two flower enclosures.
But I still feel like I gotta make these two enclosures way more pink.
And in order to do that, I went outside and went up to this pink tree I have in my yard. The flower petals all over it looked like a good color, so I grabbed a few of them and scattered them along both of my enclosures. Now, when I put one of the pink flower mantises up to the flowers and let them climb onto it, it's almost like it completely disappears. Anyways, now it's time for this third enclosure. Now, if you remember, I got this plant for this enclosure, so I kind of just picked off parts of it and planted it along the soil all around the enclosure. And as you can see, this mantis blends in all right with this, but it's actually going to be mostly used as just a way to climb up to some moss where she really blends in with.
All right, that looks good. And now time for the black enclosure for the black mantis. And for this, I just got a green plant because obviously there's no such thing as a black plant, or wait, actually, there might be a thing as a black plant. Let me test it out. Let me put that leaf there. Turn on the blowtorch, and I guess just see what happens. Just start lighting it a fire.
And as you can see, when I burned this plant, it actually was turning black, but also had a slight side effect that it was completely getting disintegrated, and the structure of it all fell apart.
Yeah, I don't know if I could use that, actually.
So I just stuck to my original plan and put the plant smack dab in the center of the enclosure. Yeah, it doesn't really match, but to be honest, it's kind of cool and adds a little bit of nice contrast to this burned wasteland look. And with that, we can now finally put the mantises into their new home and see if their camouflage actually works on bugs. Let's go get these mantises fed. Now, as you can see, I've got 4 different tiers of food that get harder and harder to hunt. So let's start by first letting the little pink mantis go. There you go, boy. Come on. You gonna climb on? Hello? Now, for the first food source for this guy, I'm going to be using literally the smallest animal they sold at the pet store. Extra small crickets, which is the size I never get for my videos because, I mean, look at them. They're like even smaller than my fingernail. But anyways, let's put these inside the enclosure. Right away, one of the crickets started to climb along a flower. And I don't blame you if you couldn't see the mantis here because it's in its prime camouflage territory. If us humans have trouble seeing a mantis like this, I can say for a fact that this cricket definitely couldn't see it, and it made a grave mistake of walking too close. The mantis quickly struck at the cricket, but missed. But the mantis wasn't gonna let that stop him. So the next time the cricket came around, he charged up an attack and jumped off the leaf. Yeah, and that kind of just kept happening over and over. I guess they're scared of extra small crickets or something. Yeah, the mantis couldn't even get a hold of these. I'm giving extra small crickets a 1 out of 10. But for the next pink flower mantis, I'm gonna be testing with him the next size up of crickets. We got some medium crickets. Let's see how these do in the enclosure. So I went and dumped some of the crickets in and then put the pink flower mantis in. And right away, I noticed that maybe I had put too many crickets in because the mantis was getting absolutely surrounded by them. In fact, he actually looked pretty scared and was trying to just stand still to blend in and not get seen by the crickets. And the entire 45 minutes of watching him in this enclosure, I didn't see him strike a single cricket. Well, I guess just any crickets are not a food source that baby mantises like. So these get a 0 out of 10. Get this trash out of here. However, this next mantis is a bit bigger and I'm 100% confident he's gonna eat the next food source. So let's go and put him in the enclosure. There you go, boy. Now for this guy, I'll be feeding him some dubia roaches. They're fast and hard to catch, but they're very nutritious. The mantis ended up walking onto this plastic lid that I had put in the enclosure, so I ended up just putting the roaches on that. And literally instantly, the mantis noticed them and turned on his predator mode. Right away, he struck at them and missed. But he wasn't gonna let that stop him because then he struck again, and this time he got a perfect hold of the roach. Using their sharp claws, they basically hold the prey in place and lock them so they can't get out no matter what. Then with its alien mouth, it sucks the juices out of the roach while it's still alive. Yeah, it's extremely brutal, and the whole time the roach was just squirming its little antennas around, but there was nothing it could do. There we go. That's what a mantis is supposed to do. So I think I'm gonna give the roaches 8 out of 10. And that's because I still think there's room for improvement with this black mantis because I have one more prey I want to try and feed them. So I'm just gonna go and let this guy loose in the enclosure. For this guy, I'll be feeding him flightless fruit flies, which is the tiniest of all the preys I've had, meaning it's probably the hardest to catch. But I've also heard mantises love flies, so let's see. Now it turns out that doing that burnt wood for this enclosure was actually a good idea because the mantis was just chilling on one of the sticks waiting for a fly to walk by. And after leaving him alone for a minute, I actually came back to a flightless fruit fly in his hand. It's a pretty cool shot to see the black mantis on the black stick eating a black fly contrasted with that white background. But I did kind of want to see him strike one of the flies, so I ended up putting him on a white lid and put a fly right up to his face. Right away, he struck at it, and yeah, he started eating this one too. Even though mantises are just some simple little insects, I think they have one of the coolest eating processes out of any animal. And yeah, even though all 4 of my mantises are still really small right now, they should grow up over the coming months and be way bigger soon. So I have a feeling they're gonna make a great addition to my pet.
I'm just kidding.
What I actually did was went onto Facebook Marketplace where I could buy a bunch of stuff for super cheap.
Okay, so I've searched up terrarium on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm not really finding anything good for under $10. I mean, seriously, look at these. This one's $40. Bro, who built this? This thing's trash. It literally just has grass and leaves. $40, that's a scam. Okay, instead I'm gonna search up jar because I might be able to find something I can use. And oh yeah, these are more in my budget. Okay, this one might work well. 3 sort of new jars. They're apparently in excellent condition, but one has a giant crack in it. I don't know if that's excellent. Yeah, I mean, I could probably make like leaf screw out of this and stuff. I don't know. Let me just go buy it. Okay, so I met up with the guy and gave him the $5 bill, you know. And of course, now I got the jars. Oh, that did not sound good.
And because I had multiple jars, I got the idea to build a different biome in each one.
Like, what if in this one I built a forest, this one I built a desert, and then in this one I built a lake? I mean, if I built a lake, it'd be more of an aquarium than a terrarium, but whatever.
So that's what I planned on doing. And then at the end, I'd be able to compare the $10 biomes with the $1,000 ecosystem to see which was better.
Okay, so I'm gonna create this first jar into a forest. And to do that, I'm gonna need some basic materials like dirt, wood, rocks, and plants. The problem is, though, that we only have $5 to turn all of these jars into terrariums. And literally just a bag of dirt is over $10. Ooh, that's not good. But thankfully for me, dirt is actually free if we just, you know, walk outside. Oh yeah, look at this quality dirt right here. Let me just, dig this up. All right, the dirt has been acquired.
But before putting it in, I have to make a drainage layer in this jar first because that's just what terrariums need. But thankfully, that can be done easily again by just walking outside and picking up some rocks. All right, I put the rocks in, but now typically you'd use some sort of material like this window screen to separate the drainage layer from the substrate. But of course, window screen is definitely not in our budget, so we're gonna have to think of another alternative.
So I did some searching around outside, hoping I could find something.
Okay, I guess there's some plastic here. Wait, this could actually work. Has some like Chinese on it. I don't know what this says, but okay, wait, let me see if I can use this.
And as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's terrarium substrate separator. I poked some holes in the plastic to allow water to pass through, and that let me put the dirt on top.
And there we go, the base of the forest terrarium is finished.
But obviously this is not a forest, it's just dirt. So in order to make it a forest, I needed to add in some decorations, which just meant I had to go outside again and pick up more stuff. Yeah, that's kind of what this entire forest build is.
As you can see, we got all sorts of supplies, which is gonna allow me to customize my terrarium to my artistic liking. And wait, look at this plant here. The roots on this one looks like it's growing some sort of vegetable or something. Wait, is this like a radish or a green onion? Wait, does it taste like one? Oh, oh, it does not taste like one.
Anyways, I put the decorations in the build.
All right, now time for the grand reveal of this forest. Let's move this down and oh yeah, look at this.
Okay, maybe it's not that cool, but at least it looks pretty good for being basically free. Now there's just one more thing to do to finish this little forest, and that's to add some life into it. Now it'd be cool to add like a frog or something in here, but yeah, this is probably not big enough for a frog. So I'm gonna have to settle for something I find outside again.
Now, to be honest, I'll just settle for like an earthworm or something. Oh wait, I see something right there. Wait, do you see that? Oh. Wait, bro, there's a cricket. Okay, wait, this is even better than a worm.
So I picked up the cricket and put him into his new home.
All right, and the cricket is in there. Can you see it in there? It's kind of hard to see, but it's right there.
The forest was now complete, and to finish off the $10 builds, I still needed to make the desert and a lake, which will be a lot more interesting to build, since I won't be able to just find the materials right outside my house. But before building those, the package for my $1,000 terrarium just arrived, so I'm gonna start building that first.
Okay, this is pretty heavy, but I think I got it. There we go, that is the box, you know? So let me open this up, and I swear, if this thing is not already put together, I'm gonna be very mad because I do not want to build this from scratch. Oh no, I don't think this is put together. Yeah, it's definitely not. There's just glass panes here. Okay, there goes 2 hours probably.
2 hours later.
And along with the tank, I also did buy a bunch of supplies, about $395.87 worth of supplies, which are right here. But to start off the build, we basically got to get rid of all of this stuff, so, because the first step for building this terrarium is to put this little water filter chamber thing that I built into it.
For this $1,000 build, I'm going all out, and I'm making an entire chunk of the rainforest with a working river running through it. And this will let me filter the water and allow fish to live in there. So to build this thing, I first sprayed the entire back of the glass with some silicone, which will allow me to put tree branches sticking out on it. To keep the wood in place, I used some spray foam to do some more spraying. And finally, I stuck a bunch of dirt all along the back so it looked more natural.
All right, look at this thing. This thing is actually enormous. This is like as tall as me. And don't worry about this being ugly right now, because later on, I'm gonna add a ton of plants here to make this actually look good. But for now, we're gonna focus on the floor area, because right now, I'm gonna make this into a river.
To make it, I first glued in a piece of foam to easily separate the land and water areas. Then I got a ton of rocks and wood to create a natural looking underwater environment, because you know, there's usually rocks and wood underwater.
All right, there we go. That is done now. So let's finish that underwater area look and add some sand in, because, you know, you need sand to make an underwater section. Okay, now that the floor and the water portion's done, let's get to the floor and the land portion. For this, I'm gonna be mostly using these Leica balls. Honestly, these kind of look like cocoa pebbles, but I think I learned my lesson. Now, to complete this floor area, I need to put a layer of substrate on top of it.
But before doing that, I used this pump to do some plumbing and create a tube that will allow the river to actually have a working water flow. Then finally, I added the dirt on top to finish the floor area.
All right, now there's just 2 more things to finish this build. 1 to add water, and 2 to add plants. And thankfully I can do that first one pretty quickly, just like this.
So now I want to test if the water flow actually works to see if we can actually turn this into a river. All right, so let me plug this thing in, and this better work. I spent like the past 2 hours doing this, and oh, okay, so it's working, but the water flow is very extreme, and it's kind of messing up the sand. Okay, this is just making the water very dirty right now. Can you stop doing that?
So to fix the issue, I got some tape to try and make the end of the tube more narrow.
Oh, nah. Oh, nope, that is not working. Oh, no. Taping it does not work. Oh my god.
Now in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been doing that right next to the power strip, but thankfully my house didn't explode. Anyways, eventually I got the water flow working and the $1,000 terrarium was starting to come together pretty nicely.
But since things aren't going too well for this right now, I'm gonna take a break and just move on to the $10 terrariums. All right, so we're moving from this beautiful $1,000 build over back to the minuscule $10 builds. And as you know, the forest build is already done, so we're moving on to the desert build now. Now for the drainage layer of this, we can do the same thing we did in the forest and just go get some rocks. But now this is where things get tricky because I can't really just go outside and get sand because I basically live in the middle of not a desert. You know, there's trees outside and stuff. So that means the only way I can get some sand is if I buy it. I don't know if there's actually gonna be any sand under $5 that I could buy. Let me just search it up anyways, and oh, that's not good. And wait, $2 for sand. Oh my gosh, it's not even lying, $3 for sand. Okay, that is actually so good. I can actually get some sand now. Well, I guess let me go to Betco. I'll be there soon.
Thankfully, it was still in stock when I got there, so I bought that, and then I poured it in the jar.
Now, similar to the forest terrarium that we built earlier, we're gonna need plants for this desert one. Now, ideally, we get a nice cactus in this thing. I think that'd look pretty cool. The only problem is, as you know, our budget is lacking a little bit. Okay, well, maybe there's a chance I can buy a cactus for super cheap. Cactus near me. And yeah, $1,000, $200 for a cactus. Wait, there's actually one for $1. Wait, what? Okay, wait, this is actually good. I can buy a cactus for $1. That fits in our budget. It's at this store called Michael's. I've never even heard of that, but $1. I guess I'm going to Michael's.
So I went there, and they had some absolutely fantastical cacti to choose from. So I got myself this.
This massive cactus was only $1. Dang, I've like literally never heard of Michael's. There was no cars in the parking lot. Guys, you need to go to Michael's. They got some fantastical deals there. All right, let's get this in here. I'm gonna dig out a little hole with my golden spoon. Don't ask why it's golden.
And so I added the cactus in, and the desert build was now complete. But to fully finish the terrarium, I once again needed to add life into it. And since I wouldn't be able to buy anything with my 71-cent budget, I got the idea to put a worm in there from outside to act as a sandworm. Because, you know, I didn't really have any other options.
All right, let's put the sandworm in his home, and there we go. The desert build is now finished. I hope you enjoy your new life, little boy. Okay, so I was planning on moving straight to building the lake right after this. But you remember how I got this cactus at Michael's? Or, Michelle? I don't remember what it was called, but you know how I got this cactus? Well, while I was there, I also got, pretty much all the plants we're gonna need for this $1,000 build for a pretty good price. It barely even made a dent in our budget. So I'm gonna go and put these in right now, I guess. And, oh, shoot. Oh, that is not good. While I was putting all that spray foam on the back, I was supposed to also put these little plant pots there, but I forgot, so this is gonna be a lot harder to put the plants in the bin.
But thankfully, I'm a genius, and I used my hot glue gun to glue all the plant pots on the back of the wall. Then I was able to put all the plants in the pots. I even got some aquatic plants to put in the water area to fully round off everything in this $1,000 build.
Now, some people may say these very obviously black pots put all around the terrarium is ugly, and well, to those people, I say that you are probably right. This is pretty ugly. But I guess this is the downside of the $1,000 build. It's too complex to make.
Well, anyways, to complete this terrarium, I needed to add life into it, which I was gonna do by adding in fish. But before doing that, I want to finish the $10 terrariums.
All right, the first two terrariums are done. Now we just gotta focus on this last one, which of course is gonna be the lake. Now, I bet some of you have probably been wondering, how on earth am I gonna turn this into a lake? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. Let me show you how we're gonna do it. We're just gonna take this, we're gonna take it out to my car, buckle it in, and drive.
Now, you see, I figured the best way to make a lake terrarium is to just go to an actual lake and scoop up the sand and water. That way, I wouldn't have to worry about our lack of money.
All right, I've made it. I mean, it's not a lake, it's a river, but no, it's gonna have to do. And this is very embarrassing. I really hope someone doesn't see me trying to pick up this water and put it in my jar. Okay, I have Serrate around me. No one's near me. I have time to get this water, baby. Give me this water.
So I collected all the water I needed and also scooped up some of the dirt so I could bring it home. So I added everything in and the lake ended up looking like this. Yeah, not very appealing. Well, there wasn't much I could do. So anyways, I needed to add life into it. And this was actually gonna be pretty easy because a few videos back, I built a lake ecosystem on my desk. And in that video, I put some albino mystery snails into it. And just recently, they had babies. So I'm just gonna yoink this guy and put him into his new home.
Do you even see it in there? It's there, I think. Wait, no, I think it's there. I can't even tell where it is. I think it might be dead.
The $10 builds were all completely finished, but don't leave yet, as now I'm adding the most coolest, epicest, super cool life into the $1,000 build. Guppies.
Okay, to you, maybe they're not the coolest fish ever, but to me, I mean, they look pretty cool. They got spots and fins and, okay, you know, let's just add them in.
So I put some of this API quick start bacteria in, so it would be safe to add the fish whilst the cycling process took place. And immediately, you could tell they absolutely loved their new home. Well, I can't say that they loved it for sure, but I mean, they were swimming around and stuff, so they probably did. I even turned on the river flow to see how they would react. Most of them seemed pretty annoyed, but one of them kept playing around in it and flinging himself around the river. The $1,000 terrarium and $10 terrariums are now all finished. Are the $10 terrariums better, or is the $1,000 terrarium better? And well, the answer's pretty obvious. The $1,000 terrarium is better. But you do gotta remember, this is literally $1,000. Like, literally, you could replace this with a used car, or, okay, maybe not a car.
For the build, you already know we're going to be starting with some aqua soil, which is super important for making sure our plants grow nice and strong. But if you've seen my channel before, you know this soil can make the water extremely dark and dirty. So this time I've come prepared with a bunch of sand. We're going to give this a nice clean coat on top of the soil, and in order to make it look not so flat, I made this little sand hill in the left corner. But now that we've got about an inch of soil and about 1/4 an inch of sand, we can start getting cool decorations in here. And first up, let's just focus on the wood.
And yeah, I'm Terra Green, so we got some pretty good options for wood. In fact, in this closet, I think we got a lot of wood in here. Shoot, I forgot how much there was in here. This would have been useful for some past videos.
Anyways, I gathered them all up and brought it over to the mega tank. Since the wood will kind of be the base of everything, I really took a bit of time to find the exact pattern and types of wood that I liked most. And after a little while, I ended up deciding on this. I kind of liked how all the wood was in this one area, and hopefully by the end, it's all gonna look like tree trunks growing out of the water. But for now, I actually have to take the pieces of wood out and throw them in a bathtub.
Now, technically, I don't think we have to do this, but basically the thinking is if we let this soak up a bunch of water inside the wood, when we go and add the water inside of our fish tank, the wood won't just like float to the top, because that's a problem sometimes I have. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave this here for a few hours.
After a couple hours, I went and put them back in the tank, added the price to the total, and now it's time to add in some rocks. We're gonna keep it simple, just a couple pretty big gray rocks scattered around that I bought from an aquarium store earlier, and I figured it'd be cool to kind of blend the gray pattern into the sand more, so I used a bunch of these tiny gray pebbles to do that to all the rocks around. And with that, I would say the base decorations of the enclosure are complete. Now we gotta do the DIY decorations.
And this is where it gets fun, because right in this area right there, I want to build a custom fish statue, because I don't really know why. I just think it'll be cool or something.
Now, if you're wondering how I'm gonna do this, well, first of all, I set up a table next to the tank that I could work on, but then I got out this brick and some chisels. Yep, I'm gonna carve this brick into a fish sculpture. This probably isn't gonna go so well. But quickly before doing that, as you know, I hacked the hammer, but it wasn't really effective. So I took the chisels out of their package and instead used the hammer to smack the back of it. And basically, I just did that over and over and over and over, very carefully, trying not to break it. I did make one mistake by accidentally breaking off a big piece of the base, but I quickly fixed it up until it was done.
Well, here it is. My first ever statue I sculpted out. And besides a few things I kind of messed up on it, I would say this belongs in the museums besides the greatest works of sculpts of art of ever. But yeah, anyways, let me just put this in right there and boom.
But I still kind of felt like something was missing, so I bought a very important addition, googly eyes.
There we go. That's what it was missing. If you think I should try building a statue again in a future video, let me know in the comments. And also, let me know what to build. Don't make it too hard, though. I don't really want to build anything too hard.
Now for the next DIY decoration, and let's make a custom custom aquarium background. You see, many people add these backdrops, which make the back of their aquariums blue, or they can have stone textures. But since it was so big, I actually routed my hose through my window. That way I could just turn on the faucet and it would fill up. And it only took about 15 minutes for it to fully fill up.
Now, I don't actually want to just only fill this up with water, because if I had put a fish in here right now, it would die.
You see, this is because fish poop, obviously. But in aquariums, the poop actually dissolves into the water, which over time, the fish will have to breathe, and obviously, poop water isn't good for the fish. So we need to do something called cycling, which will add bacteria that eats the poop before the fish breathes it. So I added in a couple products that did just that. Then I even sprinkled in a little bit of fish food, which will basically feed the bacteria I just added and make it stronger so it can break down the poop even better. But anyways, I had to wait a whole 12 days until the cycling was done.
So yeah, now you probably know why I don't show that every video, but in the meantime, I was able to go and pick up, the backdrop. Yeah, looks pretty good.
So I put that behind the tank, and now I would say we're ready for step 4, adding in the aquatic plants. So I quickly drove to the store to go buy some.
Okay, I'm at Petco, and I have a feeling I'm about to spend a lot of money. Because if you look over here at the plants, it's $11 for this tiny plant. And a medium-sized one is even more. And, well, I need like 50 of these.
So I picked out all the ones I liked and bought them. I even ended up going to another pet store to buy all of their stock. So by the time I got home, I was absolutely stacked with aquarium plants.
If you're wondering, the total came out to $593. Yeah, that's kind of sad. But anyways, let's just get to planting them. Let's go.
First of all, I drained the cycled water into a tub to make it easier to plant. Then I went in and started to put the smaller plants in the front, the medium plants, in the middle, and the large plants in the back, of course. I even had a couple plants left over, so I started to scatter them along the wood to fill up the tank even more. Finally, I filled it back up with water, and by the end, this is what it looks like. And well, dang, I would say this is pretty good. Nice job, me. You did a good job building this. And now that the tank is complete, it's time to do the last thing. Stock it with fish. And oh boy, this is gonna be fun. Usually I buy my fish online, but this time I wanted to head to the biggest fish store in my state. That will 100% have some insane species of fish. This is gonna be like a 4-hour drive, so let's go. Thankfully, you guys don't have to watch the whole 4 hours because of the magical power of editing. But anyways, here's the store.
Okay, well, I made it, but I'm not gonna lie, this place kind of looks small. Was this worth the 4-hour drive?
But when I walked inside, I figured out that this was definitely worth driving 4 hours for. Because look at this. They had like 7 of these aisles that were just absolutely stacked with the different fish species. There were so many options, and so many of the fish just looked so cool, and I wish I could buy them all, but I ended up choosing and buying just 4 different species, which I'm gonna keep a secret until I put them in the tank.
All right, the goods have been gotten, and if you're wondering, the total came out to $500. But anyways, let's just go home.
So I quickly drove the 4 hours back.
All right, now it's time to add in the fish. Now I've got 4 different species that all have some sort of unique special ability, but for now, we got the first fish species right here.
These are balloon mollies, and I've got 14 of them, which should fill up the tank pretty nicely. And after a little bit, they all swam out the net to start exploring around the tank. Instantly, they all kind of just grouped up, and they seemed like they were having an amazing time looking around their new home. Now, I did say that every fish I was gonna add has a special ability, and these guys, they have an ability, it's just not that special. You see, mollies like these guys will constantly just swim around the tank, sucking up sand or taking nips at the plants. And the reason they do this is because they're actually able to filter out microscopic little food particles from the sand and the leaves. And yeah, they basically just spend all day swimming around looking for something to eat.
Anyways, fish number 2 is in here.
These are hillstream loaches, and yeah, there's 5 of them in here, which you might not even be able to tell. And yeah, they definitely aren't your average fish species, but they're insanely cool, so I put them all inside the tank. Instantly, they swam down to the bottom because these loaches are bottom dwellers, which means they spend basically all their time just chilling on the floor. But what makes these cool is not only that they look like stingrays with those flaps coming out of the body, but those flaps actually have an important purpose. You see, hillstream loaches are able to suction their body to surfaces like the side of the glass by pressing their fins down. And this basically lets them just swim along the glass and eat up any sort of algae or biofilm that grows there. Technically, these guys can get almost all their food on their own by doing this.
Man, I love these guys. They literally look like little aliens that'll suck at your face.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, but the third fish is even cooler.
These are clouded archerfish, the biggest fish I'm going to be adding. And I've shown archerfish in videos before, but these clouded ones are a bit different and they're going to go well in the tank. But the thing is, right after adding them in, the mollies actually kind of started to surround them to inspect their new tank mates. I did carefully watch this to make sure no fights broke out because these archerfish can be slightly aggressive at times. But after a couple minutes, the mollies stopped surrounding the archerfish and they started to swim around. Now you see, archerfish basically spend all their time at the top of the water, and they do this for a very special reason. That's because archerfish's special ability is they're able to spit a little stream out of the water into the air, specifically to knock types of bugs into the water so they can eat them. It's absolutely crazy, and I just had to try it with these guys, so I got out a cricket onto my hand and just kind of held it above the water. I held it there for a few minutes, and the closest one got was this archerfish, who was just sitting right under my hand. But I guess he couldn't see the cricket moving or anything, because he didn't even try to spit water at it.
Well, shoot, none of the archerfish are trying to eat this thing right now. But I do actually have a video about a year ago I posted about the 7 weirdest fish, where I actually showed the archerfish shooting. And as you can see, it's super cool and super satisfying once it actually does. And yeah, they just basically gulp the cricket out the water once they land it in. It's very cool. But anyways, now it's time for the 4th and final fish species, which is right here. And in fact, it's actually not a fish at all.
These are brine shrimp, and in fact, they're actually not meant to be kept as pets at all, because they actually live in salt water. But many aquarium owners will use these guys as a food source for their fish because they're very nutritious. And so I just had to try and feed some of my new fishies. So I poured the brine shrimp into a water gun, and yes, I did have to put them inside a water gun. I couldn't find any syringes or anything to suck them up with. But anyways, I started to just shoot the water gun into the water, and every time I shot it, you can see a few of these little white specks came out of the stream. These are the brine shrimp. And after I started to shoot the gun a little closer to some of the fish, at first you can tell they were kind of scared and probably thought I was trying to attack them or something. In fact, it took a couple minutes before I noticed the first fish starting to eat the shrimp. But oh boy, was this fish absolutely loving it. He was just going around gulping up shrimp after shrimp. I guess they're just super tasty to the fish, because over time, pretty much every fish ended up getting their fair share of this food. Well, all the fish have been put into this tank, and it's completely built up. So I would call this I've seen videos of ants doing insane things to survive, like in this one where they built a boat out of their bodies to survive a flood, or in this one where they built a dangling bridge out of their bodies to attack a wasp nest. So I was wondering, if I put my 1,000 ants into obstacle courses, will they do similar things to complete them, or are my ants just not that smart?
Well, I just spent hours gathering 1,000 ants out my old ant nest, so I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to put these guys up against their first ant obstacle.
Obstacle number 1 is this thing. Basically, what we do is put some massive dead insect food at the bottom, and then we fill it with a bunch of sand to turn it into one of those 2D ant nests. Basically, we'll be able to watch the ants dig out all sorts of tunnel systems in here, and if they actually find the insect food I hit at the bottom, then they'll pass the obstacle and move on to the next obstacles that get harder and harder as the video goes on.
All right, let's not waste any time, and well, let's just do this. Wow, that is very satisfying watching 1,000 ants fall in here. Okay.
Now, of course, immediately, the ants all just started to try and climb the walls of the top area to try and escape. But surprisingly, many of the ants were already starting to dig down that center 2D part of the nest.
Oh my gosh, this is happening so fast. Wait, is there already progress on the side of the tank? Oh, I just put these guys in literally like 45 seconds ago, and they've already dug like half an inch down in. What?
Yep, and if you check out this time-lapse footage, you can see just how quickly they were getting work done. They literally work like mini drills to dig these tiny tunnels through the sand. But in reality, it's a tiring and grueling process where each individual grain of sand has to be picked up from a worker underground, brought all the way up to the surface through this little hole, and then dropped off at this pile of sand over here. Now, while I was recording this, it was actually getting pretty late in the day, so I decided to turn off the lights and came back the next day to see the progress made. And guys, the next day I came back to the ant nest looking like this. Yeah.
Bro, what? It's been literally like 8 hours. How did these ants build an entire intricate nest?
And not only were all these intricate tunnel systems made, but remember those dead insects I placed at the bottom as food? Well, it's safe to say that ants found those too, and it looks like the whole colony had swarmed them and had already started to devour them. And since they got to the insects, that technically means they passed this first obstacle. Congratulations, guys. It happened so fast, I literally didn't even capture that on camera.
Oh, but this next obstacle the ants are going up against will definitely be caught on camera, because the next obstacle is the tightrope of doom.
Yes, you heard that right. And if you're wondering what that is, well, it's this thing. Yup, the ants will have to walk across this extremely narrow tightrope over a pit filled with fire and flames.
Oh, I gotta put that out. Oh, yep, put that out.
Are you gonna go out?
No, I'm just kidding. That would be crazy. These are literally my pets. I would never do that. But I will be trapping the ants down here if they fall by lining the walls of this pit with this super slippery liquid stuff called Fluon. I know you can't really see this stuff since it's invisible, but basically when an ant tries to walk up on here now, it'll just slip off completely. Yeah, this stuff is super slippery.
And you guys are about to see why this challenge gets so interesting in a second. But if you look over at the 2D ant nest, you'll actually see I have a little hole here plugged up with some paper towels. And if you also look here, I got some tubing, meaning I can connect this to the obstacle. So yeah, let's just get this obstacle started. Come on, ants, let's get in here.
Immediately after plugging in the tubing, obviously ants noticed and started walking in. I mean, there's 1,000 ants. You can't even get away from them for a second. But that's what makes these obstacles fun, because it only took like 10 seconds till our first ant entered the tightrope of doom tank. Now, to pass this obstacle, the ants quite literally just need to get one of these pieces of insect legs back across the tightrope, which I think might be impossible, but let's see how they do. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the ants started off with some pretty lackluster performance because our first ants that made it to this tightrope didn't actually walk onto it. They kind of just walked around it on the corner of this platform where they just ended up just slipping off. Yeah, come on, guys. What are you doing? But we got 1,000 ants, so I was expecting at least one of these ants to eventually step onto this tightrope. But as tons more ants started to walk into this room, yeah, they kind of all just did the same exact thing. And the pit started to get absolutely filled up with tons of ants.
Come on, ants, what are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. I think this is actually my fault, and to make them walk across the tightrope, I just gotta fix something. Let me show you how to fix it.
Basically, what I did was, first of all, tape 2 extra pieces of string to the tightrope to make it a bit thicker so the ants would feel safer when they walked on it. And also, I rubbed this insect jelly food on the tightrope to make the bridge smell like jelly. And yeah, hopefully this will make them want to walk on it. Now, this worked exactly how I wanted it to, because within the first minute, our first workers actually started to walk onto the tightrope and explored it, just very slowly. But over time, more and more ants started to walk onto it, and it was actually kind of funny because sometimes the ants would literally just be hanging from each other's legs because there would just be way too many on the tightrope at the same time. Dang, these ants aren't very good at saving their friends. But it didn't take long for our first brave ant to actually make it to the end of this tightrope. That wasn't even half of the challenge, because now, if you remember, the ants actually got to pick up one of these insect legs and bring them back across the tightrope. And this ant clearly wasn't looking too interested in that, because yeah, he was just completely ignoring them. So I kept waiting until some more ants made it to the side by crossing the tightrope. And surprisingly, one of the ants that made it actually did seem interested in the legs, because he went up to one of them and actually started to bite it. But if you couldn't tell, this leg is kind of way too big for this worker to carry it all by himself, and for some reason, even after tons of ants made it onto this side, none of them came to help this poor worker move the leg. But this worker had a mission. He knew he needed to take a leg back to the colony, so what he did was he went up to one of the smaller insect legs that he could actually carry by himself, and he actually picked it up and started to walk. Yep, yeah, it wasn't super efficient or anything, but theoretically, he could pass this obstacle for the entire colony if he played his cards right. And played his cards right, he did, because I'm not joking, he walked straight over to the tightrope, and he might have had an extremely close call where he almost fell off, but somehow he managed to save himself, and then the ant actually started to walk across the tightrope with an insect leg in his mouth.
Oh my gosh, guys, this is genuinely so insane. I am rooting for you, bro. I mean, you got a long way to go, but guys, the ants were doing so awful up to this point. You could see how many fell into the pit of doom. Bro, this dude, he's just an absolute killer.
Yup, literally none of the 1,000 ants decided to help this dude. He was doing this entirely solo. And so he kept on marching, completely ignoring any ants that were in his way. And this dude made it all the way to the end of the tightrope, where he then walked onto the platform to complete the obstacle. Oh my gosh, this ant is insane. Seriously, I gotta name this guy. I think I'm gonna name him Antony. And we're probably never gonna be able to find Antony again since all the ants look the same. But seriously, everyone spam some W's in the comments for Antony. That was so insane.
And since these guys beat the obstacle, I'm gonna give them the insect's legs as a prize. Thanks, Antony. Hopefully you guys enjoy.
So I quickly moved all the fallen soldiers back to the 2D ant nest. And well, this colony is now ready for its third obstacle. And oh boy, am I excited for this one.
Because guys, these ants are gonna have to break into a vault. Yeah, like a robbery, basically.
Yup, you heard that right, a vault. For this obstacle, I literally built up a DIY bank vault from scratch scratch out of paper that I knew the ants would probably be able to break into. You can see it's pretty good. Sort of looks like a real vault. And anyways, it's cool because the door actually opens, so I could fill this bank vault with an absolutely insane amount of seeds. Yeah, I put so many seeds in here.
Because, yeah, apparently seeds are this species of ants' favorite food, so they should absolutely swarm this thing. But I got this hot glue gun, so I could seal this vault door shut, because I got to make this actually a kind of hard obstacle. So let me just go and put some glue on here. Oh yeah, just like that. All right, the vault is completely sealed shut with glue now, so let's see if these ants can actually get the seeds out of it. This is going to be very interesting to watch.
So yeah, I just put it in, and as you can imagine, the 1,000 ant colony immediately started to climb onto it. Especially when things are put into colonies' nests, they need to investigate it to make sure it's not a threat. And with this, I think they pretty much immediately knew it wasn't a threat, because none of them were biting it or anything. And actually, a lot of them were just using it as an opportunity to climb out of the enclosure. That's not good. But yeah, the vault right now is pretty sealed shut, and I don't even think the ants knew that there were seeds inside of here. So nothing really eventful happened, to be honest.
Okay, this is not exactly going to plan. I'm just gonna take this box and put it in there. Oh, hopefully I didn't crush any ants. Okay, and then let me scoop up all the ants that fell off.
So yeah, I got all of those fallen soldiers back into the nest, of course.
Well, that didn't exactly work so well, but I kind of knew it wasn't gonna work so well, so that's why I came equipped with this stuff. See, basically, it's a cup of water and a big cup of sugar, which I'm gonna pour into the water. Then basically, I can mix the water and sugar around to make sugar water, which ants love the smell and taste of. And using this paintbrush, I actually just wanna go and paint our vault with it. And basically, this will make the vault not only taste like sugar, but it will also just make it kind of soggy since it's made out of paper, and it should make it able so the ants can chew through it and stuff and get to the seeds.
So yeah, I absolutely just soaked this vault in the sugar water, and without wasting any time, I got this thing in the nest. All right, ants, let's see how you do this time. And oh boy, were things a lot more interesting this time around, because right away, tons more ants were way more interested. You can see how after the ants would walk onto the vault, they would just completely stand still. That's because they were putting their mouth up to the paper and were just completely licking all the sugar off the paper. Yeah, this is not really what I had in mind. I thought this was gonna make them wanna completely chew through the paper, not lick it. But yeah, so many ants got their fair share of the sugar. However, I didn't see a single ant even trying to find or even acknowledge that there were seeds inside of here. Well, that was until this moment. When you see this hole here, well, just out of nowhere, an ant just came up to it and walked into the hole. And yeah, there was just an ant inside of this vault with the absolute jackpot of seeds. I don't know how this hole got here. I guess maybe the sogginess from the sugar water made it droop or something. But wow. That is crazy.
Oh my gosh, wait, I think the ants just completed the obstacle. Let me get all the excess ants off this safe real quick.
And yeah, once the extra ants had fallen off, I cut open the vault to see if that ant had actually made it inside. And as you can see, he absolutely had made it inside. Oh my gosh, bro, your colony has no clue how much you just clutched up for them.
Wait, imagine if this is Anthony, that same ant that beat the obstacle course. That would be insane, but I mean, I don't know if this is the same ant. But anyways, W ant.
So yeah, I just went and poured the entire vault's loot pile onto the 2D ant nest, and well, the ants have been rewarded with the absolute motherload of food up to this point. But I've been saving the craziest obstacle for last to really find out how smart my ant colony actually is. And this final one is the floor is lava.
Yup, the floor is lava, and thankfully I already have it built right here.
This is the final obstacle, and you may be wondering, bruh, Darraggreen, where's the lava? Well, the lava is these strips of red on the floor right here. You see, these are actually extremely sticky pieces of tape, and if the ants try to walk on them, well, they're gonna get stuck, of course. So if the ants want to get to the strawberries that I put at the end of the obstacle, they're gonna have to use one of the 3 tools I provided for them to figure out how they can maybe cross this lava. Or maybe they'll make a crazy bridge out of their bodies to cross it. Who knows?
Anyways, I wanted to make sure most of these guys actually participated, so I spent the past few hours individually picking up each of the ants from the ant nest and transporting them into this container, or at least as many as I can get. The rest are kind of under there. That way, they could be easily transported. But before pouring the...
I just dumped the ant straight in. If you can't tell, I actually changed the design of the obstacle a little bit, because if you remember that red tape, well, I actually replaced it with an even stickier and thicker kind of tape to make sure these ants wouldn't be able to just walk across. Anyways, let's see how they do. As you could probably guess, lots of the ants immediately went up to the tape and partially got stuck in the front. But don't worry, guys, I'll be watching the ants throughout this obstacle, and any of the ants that looks like like they get super stuck in the middle, I'll be picking up with these tweezers and moving back at the start so they don't get stuck in here permanently and hurt. Anyways, to actually cross this tape, like I said earlier, I gave these ants different tools, like a pile of dirt, some pieces of string, and even some wood chips to see if they'd be smart enough to actually use these things to their advantage to cross the piece of tape. And while it may look like the ants are not using the tools here, if you look very closely down here near the dirt, they've actually already started to push this pile of dirt onto the tape to make a little bridge that they can walk onto. If they keep building up this bridge, they would actually be able to cross this with no problem whatsoever. But right when I was filming this, I actually noticed that an ant had actually been walking across the tape and somehow had made it extremely close to the end. Yeah, I have no clue how this ant just managed to ignore the stickiness of this tape. I guess his legs were just extremely strong or something, because he got all the way to the end where he had a bit of trouble pulling himself off the tape, but eventually he was able to do it, and wow. Well, this ant just technically passed the obstacle.
Oh my gosh, bro. I didn't even see this ant, but I mean, he just passed the obstacle. I guess that's fair and square. Good job, bro. Why is it the past 3 obstacles, it's been a single ant that's clutched it up for the entire colony? But anyways, I gotta get all these guys off the tape so they aren't hurt at all.
So yeah, I got them all picked up into a container and transported them back to their nest safely.
All right, because you guys beat it, I'm gonna give you this piece of the strawberry. And because the ants beat all of the obstacles I gave them, I'm gonna be giving them this brand new ant nest. Basically, it's just a bit more compact and it has a cool outworld on the top. And I think it's just a bit more optimal for them. So I'm gonna go and move them in there. Anyways, hopefully you guys were entertained and learned something new about ants.
This is the world's largest beetle, and this is my finger. And in this video, I'll be putting to the test how strong these beetles really are. And I'll also be showing you the craziest centipede species, insane alien-looking bugs, and so many other cool insects, starting with an assassin bug.
Yup, assassin bugs. And if that sounds deadly, it's because they kinda are, but they also are kinda cool. Let me show you why.
So I let these assassin bugs loose into a little enclosure I built for them, and now you can get a clear look at them. What makes these creatures so cool is if you look here, they have this super weird sharp mouthpiece. This is called a rostrum, and using it, they can pierce into their prey, inject a special kind of digestive enzyme venom into the prey, then using the rostrum, they slurp the insides of the prey up like a smoothie. It's insane stuff. And as you can see, I have multiple of these guys because I got a special kind of species that are able to live and hunt together.
You probably see why they're called assassin bugs now. So let's feed them a cricket and document their hunting.
Now I knew this wasn't gonna last long because assassin bugs are some of the best hunters out there. And I was right, because immediately this unlucky cricket happened to climb up the very piece of bark that all the assassin bugs were hiding under. And one of them was on the lookout and instantly spotted the cricket. Now it was time to hunt. Like real assassins who move super stealthily, assassin bugs do the same exact thing. And this guy extremely slowly inched towards his target, and as the gap slowly closed, the assassin waited for the perfect opportunity to pounce onto the cricket, who was now in the grasp of the assassin bug. Right away, you can see the rostrum pierce into the cricket, and yeah, the inside of this cricket is now being turned into a juicy smoothie for this assassin bug to slurp up. Yep. Sounds yummy.
All right, let me get this lid on. I don't want these guys biting me in my sleep or anything.
Okay, the next insect species is one I've been holding off on getting for a while, but it's a centipede.
Yep, I finally got one, even though they're all extremely venomous, but oh boy, let me show you this guy.
Yeah, I didn't get a small one either. I got one of the largest species in the United States, a giant Texas red-headed centipede. And as you can tell, these guys are pretty evil, because right away he started to try and climb the sides of the container to escape, which I definitely wouldn't want, because, well, we all know the infamous Coyote Peterson who gets stung and bit by everything. Well, he got bit by a very similar centipede to this, and yeah, based off his reaction, you could probably tell it's something I want to try and avoid, probably.
Just cut the cameras. But it's definitely worth the risk, because I get to show you guys how insane of a pet they are. Let me get them in this enclosure.
Now, these guys usually live in desert environments, so we're going to use a bit of sand for this enclosure, but also a solid mix of dirt and other natural stuff, because it's actually what gives them the best conditions in their enclosure. Then we want to give this guy some nice natural stuff to hide under, and finally a couple skulls in here to signify how deadly these guys are to other insects.
All right, let's get this centipede in the enclosure. And please don't bite me too. That would be much appreciated. But, oh, he's just gonna go crawl out. Oh, it's actually pretty gentle. Go on. Yep, go crawl out. Go on. Yep, just like that. Oh, yeah.
Anyways, this dude immediately got to walking around his enclosure, and what makes these guys so cool is obviously how many legs they have. They're called centipedes because centa means 100, and they basically got like 100 legs. But not exactly 100, because I actually did count how many legs this guy had, and it was only 40. So yeah, their name is a lie, it's not 100, but I mean, it's still a lot.
It's so cool to watch these guys walk around, but it's even cooler to watch them eat. So you already know, I got a cricket. And let's not waste any time. Let's drop this thing in here.
And oh, things immediately were interesting because I dropped the cricket directly next to the centipede's face. But thankfully for the cricket, the centipede was distracted, and so the cricket walked straight past his face and kind of just walked onto his body. And then he kind of just started to ride it like a train. Dang, bro, you got to be careful because this train is, well, it's definitely about to eat you, bro. I'm just gonna be honest. And I was correct because only 30 seconds later, the centipede once again came across the cricket, and this time the centipede definitely saw him. And so the centipede started to follow in the direction the cricket ran. And so I also followed the centipede with my camera, and that's when I saw the two met again. And this time the centipede made his attack. The cricket tried to escape through the logs, but as I looked around the corner, it's pretty clear the cricket wasn't able to escape because he was now in the grasp of this insane apex predator of the desert and was getting munched up. Good job, centipede. Even though you are a little bit creepy, it's actually super cool to watch you hunt. Okay, we're coming up on the world's largest beetle and testing how strong they are. However, I still gotta show you the next crazy insect pet on the list, which is a giant millipede.
Now, the reason I'm showing a millipede right after showing the centipede is because they're very similar in a lot of ways, but they're also very different in a lot of ways.
Now, the first way they're different is, well, you know how centipedes have that absolutely bonkers bite like I was talking about that's just extremely painful? Well, millipedes are basically the exact opposite, and they're some of the most friendliest creatures of all time.
And to demonstrate that, I'm gonna let this thing crawl on me. And oh my gosh, the sensation of like these 300 tiny little legs crawling on my hand is just so weird. I don't even know how to describe it.
But if I had to, I would just say it's a very tickly, because as you can see, each one of the legs on the millipede is almost kind of sharp, which lets it get a really good grip with what it's standing on. But yeah, it's just such a weird feeling. I even let this guy crawl on this cool snake plushie I had sitting around. And wait a second, this isn't any ordinary snake plushie. This is the brand new Terra Green snake plushie that just released today. This new Terra Green snake plushie is a massive 36 inches long, and it's awesome because it has the channel logo engraved all over it, and it's very derpy looking. And since you guys have been asking for plushies for a long time, I'm not only dropping this snake, I'm also releasing this super duper cute axolotl plushie with it. And of course, we got the logo engraved on this guy too, as the blush on the cheeks. It's so cool.
And since the snake is so long, it's kind of fun to play around with. I just swing it around my dog and wrap it around him and stuff. So I'll remind you guys again at the end of the video, but they just dropped today. So yeah, I don't know when they're gonna sell out. We only made a limited amount. But seriously guys, thank you for supporting the merch. It means so much. But seriously, let's actually get back to the bugs. I got some insane insects still planned for this video. Check them out on the store though. Yeah, let's go though.
But you see, I didn't just get some lame millipede for this video. I balled out and got the most massivest millipede of all time, called a giant African millipede, which yeah, isn't really a very creative name. They just kind of said it's giant, where it's from, and that it's a millipede. But yeah, I'm not gonna complain. I guess it's easy to remember.
Now, there's just one problem because the place I bought this from specifically said in the description, do not use cocoa fiber. Now, if you didn't know, cocoa fiber is basically like the holy grail of dirt for terrarium builders. It's just like a special kind of dirt that holds humidity very well, I guess. But yeah, it's like unheard of to not use this in a build. Like I've literally never made a build without this. Like what the heck, bro?
So since cocoa fiber was all I had, I drove to the greatest store of all time behind Walmart, Petco, of course. And there I got the special kind of dirt that is not cocoa fiber, but I also got some of this mulch stuff, which is like wood chips, and a bit of moss.
But for the secret ingredient for the millipede tank, it's this thing, which I'll show you very soon.
So when I got back home, I started mixing together all my new dirt materials. All these materials I chose are specifically designed to hold just as much moisture as the cocoa fiber, if not more, which as you can see, makes this super duper moisty.
All right, it's perfect that it's now super wet because if it was too dry, the millipede would not survive very long. They dry out super easily. So yeah, I'll have to spray this thing a lot to make sure it's always nice and moist.
But since we have to keep this so wet, mold might actually grow on the sides of the enclosure. That's where my secret ingredient comes in.
I got springtails. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you probably don't think it's that cool, but bruh, I mean, I still think they're cool, okay? Be free, boys.
Yeah, springtails are just these super tiny white bugs that will go around and clean up mold if it grows. So yeah, they're perfect. Finally, I just put in some tiny bits of cork bark around to decorate the place and add some cover.
There we go. This is a fantastical millipede enclosure. Let's go ahead and get this guy inside. Be free, boy. I hope you like your new home. Spent a long time on it. Well, I only spent like 10 minutes on it, but yeah, I hope you like it.
Anyways, after he felt comfortable enough, he uncurled up from his ball and got to exploring around his enclosure. Now, there's not really much to talk about with these guys, unfortunately, because they kind of just walk around and don't do much else. The main thing that makes them cool, and also similar to centipedes, is the crazy amount of legs they have. And the average millipede has a way more legs than a centipede, as you can see. Very nice. Yeah, my guy just wandered around the enclosure for like 30 minutes, but eventually, once he feels comfortable enough, he'll start to burrow under the floor like you could see in this footage. And he'll basically just chill there for like 90% of his life, just eating the dead organic matter or something. I don't really know, but yeah, they're pretty cool. Anyways, next up on the list, I actually got something very interesting I've never showed on the channel before. A vinegaroon.
This is the closest thing to a mutant creature on Earth I think there is. And it's extremely cool. I'll show you why.
Yeah, you heard that right. A mutant creature. And the reason I say that is because look at this thing. It straight up has the body and claws of a scorpion, a tail that looks like a rat tail, and these weird antenna things that lobsters have. Yeah, this thing is weird.
But probably the weirdest thing about this creature is in its name, because it's called a vinegaroon, and if you separate the words in there, there's vinegar and oon.
Now, I don't know what the oon part of its name means, to be honest, but the reason it has a vinegar in its name is because this creature has the ability, when threatened, to arch its back up and shoot a special acid type of vinegar out of it to spray all over the threat, potentially blinding them so the vinegaroon can get away. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And I'll be showing you guys exactly what that looks like. Let's get him in his enclosure so we can show it off. This one should work pretty well.
Now, the build is pretty simple for these guys, and thankfully I can use cocoa fiber again. Phew. But yeah, I filled about 1/3 of the way up with dirt, and then I scattered some pieces of wood and bark around. This time I wanted to add some greenery, so I tore up bits of this moss and spread that around. I love this stuff because while it might look pretty dry right now, all it needs is a nice little spray to come back to life. And yeah, this stuff will just grow super fast over time as long as I keep this enclosure nice and moist.
Anyways, Mr. Vinegaroon, this is your new home. Hopefully you like it. Let me just gently release you. Go on, can you walk out? Ooh. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
And yeah, immediately after putting this dude inside, he ran straight up to the glass to get a nice little drink of water off the droplets sitting there. It was pretty cool to see him using his claws to shovel the drops of water into his mouth. So yeah, dang, I guess he was pretty thirsty.
Oh yeah, bro, I almost forgot. Let me get a water dish in there. Dude, that guy was thirsty. He instantly went and tried to get some water, so I'm just gonna go put that one nice in the corner.
So yeah, I filled that up with a bit of water. With creatures like vinegaroons, you want to make sure their water dishes are very shallow, because they're not super smart. If their water dish was too deep, they might fall in and drown. So yeah. But anyways, my guy was having a lot of fun exploring around his new enclosure.
All right, now I want to check out if this guy's gonna try and eat. Maybe he'll even shoot his acid, I don't know, but they are nocturnal, so yeah, I mean, he might not even eat at all. But you already know, I got a little cricket. Crickets love me, obviously. Let's drop this guy in. Bye-bye.
I dropped a cricket directly next to the vinegaroon, so some action could theoretically happen right away. But if you've seen my other videos with nocturnal animals like scorpions, you'd probably know that they straight up just like to not eat during the day. Yeah, they'd rather let insects crawl right next to their mouth instead of eating them, apparently. But with this vinegaroon, it was a different story, because right after a minute of the cricket standing next to him, I noticed he actually started to strike towards the cricket to actually try and eat it. That means this vinegaroon was in hunting mode. And the next time the cricket came by, I noticed the vinegaroon use his little antenna to locate the location of the cricket, and then he walked over to strike it again. But unfortunately, he also missed once again. However, a bit later, I noticed that the vinegaroon had found the little water dish I put in there for him. He then proceeded to walk into the water to take a little bath, and I guess he was getting a bit more of a drink too, but the cricket was directly next to him still. And when the two creatures got a little bit closer, the vinegaroon once again struck and missed, but this time he he was not going to give up and chased the cricket down to finally get a hold of it, all while splashing around in the water. But dang, bro now had an absolutely delicious, juicy cricket in his grasp, and yeah, he just started devouring it. Good catch, bro. I was not expecting that during the day.
Now, unfortunately, he didn't use his acid vinegar spray thing, and that's because I think they only use that for defense, and obviously I don't want to stress this guy out, so I'm not going to force him to do it, but I will show you guys this very cool footage of them doing it. Watch this.
So basically, like I was saying earlier, they arch their abdomen up, aim their tail up too, and boom, the vinegar sprays out right there. It's pretty cool to see it spray out, and it also has absolutely insane aim. Like here, the vinegaroon was able to spot on, hit the tweezers that was holding it. So basically, any sort of predator in the wild will know not to mess with this thing if it gets sprayed. It's a genius ability from the vinegaroon. But yeah, I put a lid on this enclosure, and boom, this is a pet vinegaroon. Now it's time for the real reason we're here, to test how strong beetles really are. And of course, I have the largest beetle species in the world, but I also have this one with insanely sharp mandibles, and this one that's pretty tiny, but it also has mandibles as well.
Now, I'll be starting with the smallest beetle and testing the weakest objects in this guy's mouth. But as the beetles get bigger, the objects will get bigger too. Until at the end, I'm gonna be putting my finger in this guy's mouth. Thankfully though, I get to start with this little guy. It's a lot nicer.
This is called a rainbow stag beetle. And while it's the smallest beetle I have, it's still pretty insane looking, because if you look very closely, it actually is a shiny purple color. There's not that many animals that have a purple color like this, so yeah, it's pretty cool. And I already built this guy a little enclosure, so I put him inside. Even though this place is pretty small, that's exactly how they like it, because they kind of just chill around all day and don't really move much.
Now, the first object I'm gonna test with this guy is a little pack of jelly. Technically, this won't test their strength, but I just want to show you how they eat, because it's actually pretty interesting.
Now, beetles like this are cool, because while they got their mandibles here, this is actually not their mouth. Their mouth is actually under the mandibles right here. So yeah, that's where they eat. The reason they have mandibles is so in the wild, the males can fight each other, and whoever wins the fight gets to go home with the female beetle. It's pretty interesting. But anyways, I went and put the jelly right in front of this guy. And these guys love sweet stuff like jelly or fruit. And in fact, I think this jelly is banana flavored, which is one of the beetle's favorite foods. So I thought this dude was just gonna start devouring it up right away. But in fact, he seemed kind of defensive and actually started attacking it with his mandibles. But after I really kind of started to shove it in his face, I think he got a little taste of it, and then he seemed very happy because he actually started to then eat it. And it's actually very cool to see how their mouth works. Yeah, he really just sucked all the juiciness out of this thing.
So let's close this for now, and let's actually go and get out our second beetle, which is this guy. And he has way bigger mandibles.
This is called a giraffe stag beetle. So yeah, this is also a stag beetle like the one before, but a slightly different version with these way larger mandibles that, if you actually look at them, are also way sharper. And yeah, they should be able to easily crush stuff way stronger than the previous beetle. And of course, I already got this dude's enclosure built, so I put him in as well.
All right, now for the object for this guy to crush, I've got a little piece of cardboard. Oh, also, I'm gonna take the beetle out of the enclosure for this experiment. Let's go.
So I didn't waste any time, and I just went and put this piece of cardboard in this dude's mandibles. And he sort of started to close his mandibles on it, but I'm not gonna lie, it was a kind of lackluster effort. I even tried putting it in at different angles to see if he could actually crush it, but yeah, he wasn't really doing a good job. So I decided to give him an easier object to crush, a paper towel. Surely he could at least make a hole through this with his insanely sharp mandibles. But yet again, even after putting it right at the super sharp part, yeah, it didn't really make much of an impact, to be honest.
Bruh, nah, these beetles got the most intimidating mandibles. Oh, he just almost bit me. But bruh, you can't even bite through cardboard or even a paper towel, bro. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. What are these mandibles for? You can't even bite through this stuff? No, I'm just kidding though. These are actually insane creatures. They're super cool. Let me get this guy back in his enclosure. Anyways, what I'm really excited about is testing this bad boy's bite. Well, I mean, I'm not actually that excited. I do gotta put my finger in here, but let's just do this.
Yep, it's finally time for the craziest and also largest beetle in the world. A Hercules beetle.
You guys have no idea how hard it was for me to get my hands on one of these. They were out of stock everywhere, and I had to message so many people, but I finally did. It was super expensive, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, these guys live in the South American rainforests, and unlike other beetles in this video, they literally have fur on them. Yeah, that's how you know they're exotic. But that's not even mentioning they have these absolutely bonkers carnivorous mandibles. Cause of what? The mandibles are basically like a double the size of the body.
And I got a pretty solid sized enclosure for this guy, but I'll once again be doing this test outside the tank since they're so massive.
Now, before I put my finger in the mandibles, I first got something very close to a finger to find out the real damage I was about to face.
Yeah, I got a carrot, because you know, whenever I see videos of people like testing their fingers and stuff like car door windows or something, they always use a carrot first as like a good representation of what it's like before a finger. Bro, imagine he just chops clean through this carrot, and then I'm gonna have to put my finger in right after that. Jeez.
Anyways, I went and put the carrot in the mandibles without wasting any time. And guys, to be honest, I was kind of expecting this to rip through the carrot because they just look vicious. But after moving the carrot over tons of different parts of the mandibles, the most the beetle did was give a very light pinch to the carrot. And yeah, all it took was a bit of wiggling to get the carrot out.
Bruh, wait a second. I'm not even scared to do this anymore. Yo, that thing barely affected this carrot. I'm just gonna put my finger in right now. Hercules beetle, you don't even scare me. Let's do this.
So without wasting time, I just put my finger in. Found the perfect position to get pinched in the best way, and then the beetle started to close his horn mandible. These are mealworms, and they're known for their ability to eat almost anything. But what if you put 10,000 mealworms on a whole watermelon? How quickly would they completely eat it and turn it to mush despite its massive size?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's why I bought 10,000 meal.
Bed bugs are tiny parasites that hide in your bed and suck your blood while you sleep. Bed bugs.
Now, I don't think these are meant to be kept as pets, but hey, $20, what could go wrong? Let's just buy these.
So in this video, I'm gonna build a home for them, document exactly what it's like to have bed bugs as pets, and literally feed them my own blood at the end of the video. Yes, I'm not kidding. I don't know why I'm gonna do this to myself. Anyways, until the bed bugs got delivered, I got an enclosure to build their home.
Now, I'm pretty sure there's no documented case of anyone keeping bed bugs as a pet, so I figured out what they need myself. Yeah, all these supplies are for the bed bugs.
Anyways, first up, I started to pour some coconut fiber dirt into the enclosure for step number 1, the floor. You see, for most of the floor, we want to use this dirt material, but that's not it. We actually want to pour a layer of sand on top of it, just like this. You see, I'm doing this because bed bugs would be almost impossible to spot if they were just on dirt, but on the sand, I should be able to see them perfectly.
And I really got to make sure I keep track of every bed bug, because if they escape, let's just say I'm not going to be sleeping too well. Why am I doing this?
Anyways, I finished off the floor by creating some little sand mounds in the back that I would soon be able to cover in decorations. And speaking of decorations, for step number 2, we're gonna put in the natural decorations. For those, I got out some simple stuff like cork bark, spider wood, and some gray stones, and strategically placed them around in the sand. I even stacked a few pieces of wood in this corner and covered the top in some moss to make it look like a tree. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm an expert designer, as you could tell.
And all this stuff is gonna be perfect because bed bugs like to hide under tight little spaces just like these, which is also why they like to hide under mattresses. Yeah, it's pretty cozy under there.
To finish off the natural decorations, I planted a bit more moss around just to add some more color and bring the whole thing to life. All right, now for the next step, it's time for the artificial decorations.
And basically what that means is I literally want to build a mini bed from scratch to put in the middle of this enclosure to see if the bed bugs will prefer to hide under natural decorations or if they really just love beds. Now, of course, I'm going to put this in the middle of the enclosure, but that's not all I'm going to do. You see, the reason bed bugs love mattresses so much is because they smell like humans. So basically what I need to do is make this mini mattress smell like me. And I have the perfect idea for how to do that.
So I got out my bike helmet, lined a little towel rag along the front of it, put it on, and started to go for a bike ride.
So basically, I'm just gonna ride around for like 20 or 30 minutes, and that towel I put in my helmet should absorb all the sweat, and then I could just basically squeeze it on that little mini mattress. Yeah, I'm a genius, I know.
So I went on my little ride up and down some hills, you know, and when I got home, I took the rag off my helmet to see if it would work.
Okay, I think there's like a solid amount of sweat on this, so I guess let me just go and try and squeeze it on top of this. Come on, just get a little bit of sweat out. Oh, shoot. Okay, wait, that's actually a pretty good amount of sweat. Dang, wait. Okay, this is kind of nasty, I'm not gonna lie. And there we go, it just kind of looks like someone peed in the bed now, but hey, this should smell like me now.
Well, now that the mattress is done, it's time to move on to the final step, which is a DIY technology. Now you see, bedbugs are attracted to an air molecule called CO2 because it's the same molecule that humans breathe out.
And since bedbugs love that smell so much, I'm gonna build my own custom CO2 emitter right there. And then I'll test to see if the bedbugs like go flock towards the smell. I don't know, it'll be cool though.
Now to make a CO2 emitter, you first gotta get out a nice large soda bottle and pour all the soda out. Well, technically you don't have to pour it out, it's just not healthy to drink that much soda, so yeah, that's why I'm pouring it out. Anyways, then you get the empty soda bottle and fill it up with some special ingredients. First, we fill it up almost entirely with water, and then add like 2 cups of sugar. And then the final step is to add some yeast in here, which is the same thing you use to bake bread.
Basically, all those ingredients I just added are gonna react and do some science, and basically, out the end of this tube that I attached, a bunch of CO2 is just gonna come out, and yeah, I'm just gonna see if the bed bugs go and smell it or something. I don't know.
Well, the bedbug enclosure is now finished, and that means it's time to add those nasty creatures inside and be the first person to have pet bedbugs.
All right, well, here they are, the bed bugs. They literally just got delivered, so thankfully they weren't sitting in the snow too long. But as you guys know, I'm not exactly too thrilled to be keeping these as a pet because, like I said, I'm literally going to let them be sucking the blood out of my arm. I don't know why I do this, man. But let me just get them in the enclosure I built for them.
So I brought them to my table, cut the tape, and lifted the flaps.
Oh my gosh. I think they're inside of this thing in here. Okay, I guess let me just get this out. And bro, genuinely, if these things escape, my mom is going to be so mad.
And speaking of escape, you might be wondering, how will I prevent them from escaping, considering the enclosure I made literally doesn't have a roof? Well, I forgot one important step, escape-proofing the enclosure.
But don't worry, because I've kept ants before, and I actually got this special serum for the ants that prevents them from escaping, and I'm just hoping that it'll do the same for the bed bugs.
Basically, you just get out a little cotton ball, put some of the special serum on the end, and rub it in along the top edges of the enclosure.
All right, now even if the bed bugs are able to climb the glass, they're gonna climb up, and then they're gonna get to this stuff, and basically it's just super slippery, so they're just gonna slide right off. And then finally, I'm just gonna put this top on it just like that. That won't actually do anything because these holes are pretty sure too big. Yeah, the bugs could probably just fit through it, but whatever.
Anyways, I got out the jar of bed bugs, opened the top of it, and dumped about half of the 10 inside of the enclosure. Immediately, one of the bed bugs started to scurry around his new home looking for cover and went straight into a dark spot under the nearest rock. But a few seconds later, I saw this bed bug, and he actually ran straight over to the little bed mattress I had made. And after crawling on it for a minute, he set up camp in a little piece of cork bark right next to it. I guess the fact I had made the mattress smell just like me was working really well, because over the next minute, I saw 2 more of the bed bugs just chilling on the mattress too.
Dang, that's actually cool how they all just went onto this little mini mattress I made instead of all the other decorations. But to be honest, I've kind of already lost track of every single one I put in. Yeah, they're just so small.
But the reason bed bugs are so small is so they can go undetected while hiding in people's beds. And when they find a victim to suck the blood of, they can literally get more than double in size with how much they suck.
Anyways, bed bugs are nocturnal because obviously they feed on people at night. So in order to get them to suck my arm, I'm gonna bring my mom in here at night, show my new pet to her, and then get her to film me getting bit. This is not gonna be fun, but let's just go cut to then.
Okay, Mom, you can come in.
Hey, bud.
Hi. Oh, that's a cool hoodie and hat you got on. Where'd you get that?
TerraGreenStore.com.
Oh, that's cool. All right, well, come in anyways. The reason I brought you here,
Yeah.
you haven't seen my new pet, but basically, I have another new pet to show you. Yeah, so basically, just a channel tradition, you have to guess what pet is in there based on the stuff.
I'm gonna guess. I'm thinking a spider.
A spider?
A spider.
Well, it's a bug, and I'm just gonna tell you what it is. It's, well, don't get mad at me, seriously. It's bed bugs.
No, it's not, dude.
Yes, it's pet bed bugs. That's
No,
funny.
That's not cool.
It's pretty funny. Okay.
No, dude.
Okay, so to attract the bed bugs, I built this little contraption. Basically, yeah, just take that off, and I'm just gonna pour some of this stuff. It's yeast. But basically, this is gonna have a chemical reaction in this bottle, and after I shake it up, it's basically gonna produce carbon dioxide, which is CO2. I'm just gonna leave this tube here, and we'll just see if any bed bugs
my
come out,
God,
so you can
dude.
see them. Wait. Do you see that?
Oh my god.
Wait. Right, no, there actually is one right there. Do you see that? It's like a little tiny orange thing.
Yes.
Oh, that's a bed bug.
Oh my god, you're so crazy.
But the good thing is you're not gonna have to deal with them because, well, I have to tell you something. You remember the other day I got a leech and I let it suck on my arm?
Yes.
I have to do that with the bed bugs.
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay,
They
well-
don't feed off of your arm.
Yeah, they suck your blood.
Oh my god, they do not.
So basically, I've collected about, I think, 4 of the bed bugs in this jar. Well, I just gotta roll up my sleeve, I guess, and we're gonna feed them.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so, well, I guess let me just start. We're just gonna tip the jar like that and slowly let them crawl out. Okay, there's one on my arm right there.
Oh
Let's
my
just
god,
test it
dude.
with one.
Yeah, we're just doing one.
Just
No,
two.
just do 2. Don't do any more than that.
That's okay. We need to get all 4
No,
of
we
them.
do not. No. Okay, put them back. That's it.
Why?
Because they're crawling and I'm not getting them anywhere else in this house.
It's okay, they'll bite me. So basically, they can pick up the scent immediately of what my arm is like, and I'm pretty sure these 3 are already all biting me.
Oh my
This one's
God,
just
dude.
the one that hasn't bit yet. Soon enough, all 4 were biting, and basically, all I felt was a little bit of a prick. The pain wasn't anything crazy, though. But over the next 10 minutes, my mom and I would watch them fill up with my blood. All right, so I just took the camera from you, and as you can see, I think they're starting to fill up. Is this weird?
Yeah, it's super weird. Oh, you can see them fill up with blood?
Yeah, if you look closely at their bodies, like you remember how they were super thin, now they're kind of getting a little thicker, and it should start to turn red soon. Oh, they already are, actually.
Disgusting.
Oh, do you see that one?
Ew.
It's starting to
No.
move. That means it's done.
Oh my god,
So
good.
basically what you do when it's done.
All of them in the jar.
It's okay, we'll get it. We'll get it. Don't worry. You see, basically when they start moving, that's when they're done feeding. So I put 2 of them back in the jar since they were done. Then a couple minutes later, another one finished, and then the final one a few minutes after that. All right, and then the last one is in its jar. We're done. That's how you feed your pet bed bugs.
Oh, right. Don't ever do this to anyone.
All right, well, I just let bed bugs suck my blood for like 10 minutes, so please just subscribe. That's all I'm asking. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to watch another video, click the video on the screen. Goodbye. 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 Ants are known for their insane ability to work together to accomplish impossible tasks. So I was wondering what would happen if I put my 1,000 ant colony up against natural disasters. Would they actually be able to stop and survive them by working together? Well, that's exactly why I gathered up 1,000 ants. And I have the 5 coolest natural disasters planned, starting with the most iconic, an earthquake. Yup, ants, I went out and bought a realistic earthquake simulating platform that if I go and press this button or whatever on top starts to shake so much, which recreates a real earthquake. Oh, dang. But what I'll actually be putting on here is this 2D ant nest and filling it up with the 1,000 ants, of course. Basically, these ants will dig out tunnels along the glass like my last ant video, but throughout that process, the earthquake machine will lightly go off to gently collapse the tunnels while the ants are digging. That way, I can show you how ants evolve to survive earthquakes in the wild, and if they pass, they move on to the more and more interesting disasters. Now, as you could probably imagine, the ants wasted no time to get to work. Ants are so tiny, and while a single ant would basically be able to make no progress whatsoever, when you have a 1,000 ants, things are done at an insanely rapid pace as workers started picking up grains of sand along the glass so each tunnel could be formed. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made because they literally dug out this entire amount of sand in only like 6 hours. So I'm wondering what's gonna happen to these tunnels when I turn on this earthquake machine. Now, I started by turning it on the least powerful setting. Okay, it's shaking super slowly. Now, it's my goal to make sure not a single ant is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all these disasters in the wild. But even this very light shaking was definitely felt amongst the colony. The workers along the top area immediately knew something was off and they started frantically running around, as you can see. And when we take a look down under the nest where all the tunnels are, you could see those ants were acting similarly. Ants know during earthquakes, their tunnels have the chance to collapse, so all of them were being extremely careful. Very interestingly enough, in this room here, many of the ants were gathering up on the walls of the room to add an extra layer of support so it wouldn't collapse. But of course, when an earthquake happens in the wild, a part of the nest is bound to collapse, so it wasn't long until this happened. A bit of the sand here started to fall, completely blocking off this tunnel. I immediately turned off the machine to make sure the ants wouldn't be too stressed out while they had to commence a rescue mission. Because as you can see, while most of the ants were able to squeeze out, like this guy here, at least one ant was partially trapped in this collapsed tunnel. But amazingly, it looked as though one of the ants was already picking up some of the sand from the collapsed portion to clear it out. And yeah, literally so quickly, the ants excavated the entire collapsed tunnel, enough to where it was a perfectly functional area to walk through again. And funnily enough, some of the ants even started to walk in and slowly dig out the area where the sand had just collapsed from to make a new tunnel there. Wow, the ants just completed this natural disaster. They are so smart. But the natural disasters are designed to get more interesting as the video goes on. So next up, we got a sandstorm. Yes, ants, you heard that right, and this will be taking place in the separate desert enclosure.
Yes, we need to have a separate tank, so that way I can make this sand blow around like crazy to replicate a real sandstorm.
And along with this blow dryer, I've also got all these fans that clamp to the walls, and I can just set up to constantly blow the ants back.
For the ants to be able to pass this disaster, they're gonna have to do something like grab onto each other's bodies or something to be able to push past this intense wind. And if they can make it to this canyon, climb up it, and make it to the Terra Green Leaf Bowl, then they're gonna get a ton of seeds, which is their favorite food.
All right, let me just hook up this tubing like so, and the ants should start coming. Let's go.
Yup, and this tubing is set up so once an ant enters the disaster, they can't get out. That way, we'll progressively get to see more and more teamwork as time goes on. Now, immediately, you could see these first ants just kind of thought this was a normal desert as they were walking through it, but quickly, I brought out my mini sandstorm fan, and I started to blow. Immediately, the ants started to feel the wind pressure pushing them back, and were suddenly not able to walk forward. Some even lost their grip and got pushed back a bit. And as more ants entered the desert, you could tell the sandstorm was keeping them all stuck to the left side of this enclosure.
Yo, this little mini fan is fire for replicating a sandstorm. But no, this is where it gets interesting, because now that they know a sandstorm is brewing, how are they going to figure out how to get to these seeds? Well, let's see.
While most ants kept trying to just walk forward and getting blown back, interestingly enough, many of the ants were gathering up in this back area here near the sticks. And many of them were actually starting to climb onto the sticks. You see, the fan doesn't really blow ants back if they're walking on sticks, since there's just so much of a better grip on there. But yeah, the second they climb off and stand on the sand again, they'll get blown back, as you can see. But the ants were starting to learn that they needed to stay on the sticks. So many started to gather up and march towards the right side where all the seeds were located. In fact, this ant was making it dangerously close to the seeds using the stick method. And well, he was able to make it to the little rock canyon and almost was there to the seeds.
Oh my gosh, this ant climbing right now is a beast. I am blowing this fan max speed on him, and he is just stuck to this rock.
And as I let my guard down for literally 1 second, this dude made a dash for the seeds, literally running straight towards it, and well, he made it in. And he looked so happy to have gotten those seeds. He was just dancing around in there.
Yo, this ant is crazy. I didn't even have time to blow him back when he got up into this area.
Since the ants passed a disaster, I gathered them all up and put them back into the nest. And I gave them the food prize, which of course they start to take down into the nest over the next 5 minutes.
But ants, I'm not gonna lie, this natural disaster was kind of easy to pass. But if we really want to learn about how ants survive, well, we gotta go to our third natural disaster, a flood.
Yup, and as you can see, I've built another custom tank where the flood is going to be getting simulated. I know there's no water yet, but you'll see how quickly that changes. For now, all you gotta know is if the ants make it all the way to this leaf ball, they'll once again get rewarded with tons more seeds.
These ants have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing so these guys can start walking in.
Quickly, the ants started to make their way in. But before the ants had any time at all to take in their surroundings, I had to activate the flood.
So to make the flood happen, I gotta go down here to this little bucket, plug it in, and then out the end of this tube. Oh yeah, water. Oh shoot, water's coming out. Okay, I just gotta carefully, move that over there. Oh, okay. There we go.
Similar to real life, floods will block off paths for ants while they're trying to travel, so this is exactly what that recreates. And the ants are gonna have to find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here immediately were a little confused on what to do. Many were gathering up near the water edge, inspecting what the heck just happened. Some even fell into the water, but don't worry, any ant that falls in, I'll be rescuing and bringing back to the start so no ants get hurt. But also, many of the ants were actually sort of gathering around the objects I had placed in. And as I left my camera recording, I was extremely amazed by what I saw happen. Out of nowhere, this feather started to slightly move, and as I kept watching, it slowly started nudging around more and more. There must have been an ant underneath, and this ant was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water until literally like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened. Dang, this guy must have been helping move it.
Yo, these ants are absolutely insane. I don't know what ant just moved this feather into the water, but dang, I mean, let's just see what they do.
It took a couple minutes, but eventually a couple more of the workers started to step onto the feather and started to walk across it to, of course, make it to our second platform. Now, unfortunately, the ants got to do the same exact thing here.
Sorry guys, I know you already did it once. But to my surprise, the ants literally wasted no time to start gathering around these feathers and directly in the area under them. And while it took a couple hours, eventually my camera caught this same exact thing happening. The feather slowly inched towards the water until, well, it had made a bridge across almost.
Let's go, ants. Now, I did help them a little bit by just moving the feather up onto this platform, but for the most part, they actually were moving those.
And yep, it didn't take long till our first worker stepped onto the final platform and climbed up into the leaf dish to claim their seeds.
All right, well done, little ant, and here is your guys' reward. Well, guys, if you want even better food, you're gonna have to complete this next natural disaster, which is a blizzard. And guys, this is gonna be happening in your nest. Be prepared.
Yup, this blizzard will be taking place inside of the ant nest, so we could study how ants handle the cold in the wild.
Now, obviously, I can't just go and dump a ton of snow on them. That would totally just freeze them all. Instead, I've actually got some ice cubes, which I'm gonna go and just plop on this and get it stopped up. Which, as you can see, this makes a nice little makeshift snow that on my laser thermometer is approximately -Celsius degrees.
I started by sprinkling a super tiny amount of this ice on the ant nest to see how they'd initially react, and interestingly, well, not even a single ant cared at all. Yeah, this ice just melted completely into the sand. Since the ants weren't affected by that, I decided to up the amount of ice I put in, which should give us a reaction to how ants handle the cold in the wild. And this time, the ants were actually a bit more interested in the ice, with some of them even crawling on top of them. But the most fascinating thing I had noticed was how much the ants had started to slow down their movement since the start.
Thankfully, all the ants are doing just fine still, but if you look very closely, these ants, for the most part, have slowed down so much. I mean, look at how slowly some of them are moving.
Yup, this is one of ants' special abilities. Because in the winter, when it starts to snow and the temperature drops drastically, the ants are basically biologically built to start moving slower. That way, they can conserve as much energy as possible and go hide deeper underground.
So yeah, in the wild, they would dig even deeper and all the ants would relocate to under the nest. I don't want to put any ants at risk, so I'm going to very carefully take out all the pieces of ice so this place will warm back up to the proper temperature.
And once the tank was warmed back up, I'd say the ants are now ready for their final natural disaster, which this time is a zombie apocalypse.
And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably gonna be the most interesting to watch because I've got 3 different types of insects that, in a way, is going to represent a zombie apocalypse.
Now, our first insect prey is, well, zombie grasshoppers. Yes, these are grasshoppers that Petco sells that are literally like half decomposing and meant for feeding animals. And I'll be bringing them back to life and moving it in front of the ants to see what they do.
And to make the ants swarm this even more, I'm gonna dip some of it in this brown sugar water. And yeah, this is gonna make it super tasty. Without further ado, let's get this in here.
Now, immediately after dipping this in the nest, I started to do a really good, accurate job of moving this around to act like it was alive. And I think the ants were falling for it because you can see they quickly started to climb all over it. And if you also look closely, the ants were actually grabbing onto this thing with their insanely strong mandibles, and they were injecting their venomous stingers into it. Which is kind of unnecessary. This thing is already long gone, but I guess I'm just doing such a good job moving it around that they think it's actually a real zombie grasshopper.
Okay, you guys are doing a good job attacking this. I'm just gonna leave that in there for you while I get this second insect ready.
And yeah, they start to absolutely devour this grasshopper. But anyways, our second insect food is this. They're called wax worms, and they're a staple food for ants because of how squishy they are.
But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm putting them in the zombie apocalypse section of the video. Let's go ahead and add these guys in.
I decided to put this first wax worm on top of where all the ants were still located around that grasshopper. And well, the ants almost instantly recognized the prey, and amazingly, they knew exactly what to do. And they took this dude straight down into the tunnel system where it wouldn't even stand a chance to fight back.
Oh my gosh, that was like 3 seconds. And now this worm is literally nowhere to be seen. It's probably in the tunnel system. Dang, that's actually kind of impressive, ants.
So I dropped the other 2 wax worms inside, and once again, one of them instantly got pulled down into the tunnel system to get eaten, and this one started to get swarmed. After the ants had a good grasp grasp of it, they literally brought it over to these hills in the back, which eventually the worm was then brought down one of the holes on that hill. It's so cool, because if you guys didn't even realize, the ants have turned these hills at the back into an extra place for more tunnels on the back, and we can literally see the worm down under these tunnels as the ants get their protein from eating it.
Wow, amazing job, ants. But our final zombie apocalypse food is flightless fruit flies. But I'm gonna be dumping so many on the ants, so it's like a proper zombie apocalypse movie with how many zombies there are, even though, yeah, these aren't zombies.
Yeah, these are flightless fruit flies, and if you didn't already know what they are, well, they're flies that can't fly. It's always so funny to me to say this in videos, because seriously, like, how are you a fly that can't fly? Come on, bro.
Okay, anyways, I got about 100 of these flies, as you can see. So, let's dump this zombie apocalypse on these ants. Oh yeah.
Now, as you can probably imagine, dumping this much prey on the ants activates their predator instincts a lot. Because instantly, so many of the ants started to become way more frantic. They started to run around like crazy to try and catch these little flies. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious the ants aren't going to struggle with eating these flies because they're literally so much smaller. And quickly, I started to notice lots of the ants with these little flies in their mandibles. Yeah, I bet these are tasty.
Well, ants, you've literally survived floods, earthquakes, and so much more. So I'm gonna move these guys back.
Come on, Dad, let's get this in my car. Guys, we just bought this tank from someone who said he didn't want it anymore. And apparently there's a live turtle inside, but I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, we gotta get this thing home quickly.
Yeah. Wait. Stop. I think I just saw something in there. Wait, do you see that?
And after taking a closer look, you can see the turtle was right there, chilling under a piece of wood. So we took off the lid to get it out.
Yeah, look, the turtle's in here. Wait, should we take it out until we get home?
Well, we don't have a place to put it. Well, we might as well just keep it in there.
I guess so. I mean, we're not super far from home. He looks all right. Let me just put him back in here. There you go, buddy. I'll just cover you back up.
After we got it home, I searched around for a second until I found the turtle again, which looked like it was still in good health. So I took it out to get a closer look.
What species is this? I don't think I've ever seen this. It has like orange on it. Hold on, I guess let me just put this into my temporary tank. I have an idea of how to figure out what species this is.
So I opened up an AI app on my phone to take a picture of the turtle and ask what species it thought it was. And it came back as a Central American wood turtle, and even gave me some facts about it. But at the very bottom, it said that it had the special ability to stomp on the ground to make worms rise to the surface.
Wait, that is actually so cool. I'm gonna 100% test that later in this video.
And look, it says it wants 50% water, 50% land for its setup. So I guess that's what I'm gonna be turning this thing into.
Now, of course, I had to drain the dirty water out of it and take out all the trash decorations and sand from the previous owner.
All right, this is much better. And now to start, I'm gonna put in this big rock background.
You see, the previous owner did give me these for free, saying they would fit perfectly, and he was right, because as you can see, I was able to wrap them around all sides of the enclosure, and they fit perfectly, so I spray foamed them all into place.
And now, continuing with the rock theme, I'm gonna take some of these rocks and lay them down across the entire enclosure, which will basically separate the land and water areas in here.
Since the water's going to be on the side closest to the front, we want to get some spray foam and block up all the little holes and gaps along the rocks. And before it's able to dry, I covered it in some smaller rocks and pebbles to hide the exposed foam.
And since this tank is integrating water with land, the best way to symbolize that is to build a working waterfall, which I think I'm gonna do right here.
Yep, you heard that right. So I started stacking rocks along this corner here because this is going to be the hill where the waterfall will flow from.
Now you might expect to make the waterfall work, it'll be complex, but all you need in reality is this little water pump thing.
Basically, you just put that pump in the back corner and surround the extra space around it with some filter floss, which will make the waterfall also turn into a filter to keep the water clean. Then I lined some tubing from the pump up along the side of the hill, that way it was barely poking out the top of the rocks. Now you see, I actually did try to do a waterfall in a video about a year ago, and let's just say it didn't go so well at first. Hopefully that doesn't happen here.
Well, I really hope I set up the pump in here correctly, so let's fill it up with water so we can test the waterfall.
So I did that, plugged in the pump, and waited for it to start.
Why is nothing happening? It should be going. Is it broken? Oh, well, it just went for a second. Wait, what? Oh, it's going again. Okay. Well, I mean, it's working. It's getting the water from the bottom to the top. So, yeah. It's kind of just splattering water all over me, though. I gotta turn this off.
Thankfully, I was able to change a setting on the pump to make it less extreme, which made it a lot more calm and into a beautiful flowing waterfall. So finally, I glued a little bit of rocks along the top of the pump to hide it and drained out the dirty water.
Well, thankfully, I got the waterfall working. So now it's time to finish up the floor and decorations in here.
First of all, I wanted to fill the land section with these clay leaf balls. You see, the two sections are mostly separated by rocks, but just in case a little water leaks through, this leaka should absorb it, keeping the land nice and dry. Next, I cut out some window screen matching the exact dimensions of the land, and then put the dirt substrate on top of it.
But this land area is looking pretty boring, so let's get the basics like some small rocks and wood inside. Then let's put in some of this fern moss to add some color. And this is a live moss I've never used before, and apparently when you spray it, it actually just starts growing really fast. So in just a matter of a couple days, the entire enclosure should be taken over by the moss. It should look pretty cool.
And finally, I put a ton of these branches on the wall to fill in the empty spots at the top of the enclosure.
All right, well, the land area is now all complete, and my favorite part is this little area I made under the waterfall. As you can see, it's nice and cozy in there, and the turtles will be able to set up camp in there. And now it's time for the water area, which is a little simpler because we just got to pour in sand basically.
And after getting a ton of that in, I put some gravel up against the edge of the rock, so it faded that rock texture into the sand texture.
And finally, we can't forget more rocks, baby. Yeah, pretty much this entire riverbed is just made up of sand and rocks. Pretty simple.
All right, the base of the tank is now complete, and after filling it with water, it looked even better, with of course the beautiful waterfall now flowing. But if you're an avid terra greener, you already know what the next step is. Let's get some plants, baby. First of all, I went to Walmart, of course, which thankfully had just restocked their land plant section, so I could get some good deals on those. But I also needed aquatic plants, which I could only get at the pet stores, so I bought a few of those as well. After getting home, I got out all the plants and put some of them along the land section. It was mostly just some small plants to add some greenery, but in the water portion, I put in all the water plants, which definitely brought the whole thing to life a little bit more.
And now the final step to finishing this enclosure is the cleanup crew. And you'll see what I mean by that in a second, but let's go to Petco. Okay, now first of all, we need to get something that's gonna eat up any algae that grows in the water. And in this tank here, you can see there's some aquatic nerite snails. Yeah, those little things there. Let me get them in a bag.
And after getting those snails bagged up, I of course had to buy a couple containers of springtails, which I could put on the land and would eat any mold that grows in that moist dirt in the enclosure.
Oh yes, I'm happy they had these in stock. Let's buy these too.
When I got home, I first let the little springtails loose, and they all scurried around in their own directions and took cover amongst all the dirt and leaves.
But oh, now it's time for the snails. Let's just put these guys in, and there we go.
Now the reason I chose this species of nerite snails is because they can't actually have babies in fresh water. You see, a big problem with most snail species is they'll have like a million babies, which causes the whole tank to get overrun. So thankfully with these guys, that's not gonna happen. To finish off the tank, I put in a water heater, a water oxygenator, and some heat and UV bulbs at the top, so the right parameters would all be met.
And of course, the waterfall I built in the back should mostly filter the water, but just in case it gets too dirty, I've also got this tiny little filter.
Well, this place is now 100% complete, and definitely is a big improvement from the trash I bought it as. And I'd say the enclosure is ready for the turtle. Let's get it in.
Oh, buddy, I got a big surprise for you. I know I've kept you in this temporary tank for a day, boy, but it was worth it, because look at what I just built for you. There you go, boy. Welcome to your new home.
Right away, the turtle climbed up onto the land to take a second to admire his new home. Then he jumped in the water and swam right up to a snail to try and start eating it, which wasn't possible, of course, because of the shell, so he kind of gave up.
Well, dang, clearly this guy's hungry, and I already know he has some crazy hunting tactics for worms. So let's go and test a bunch of different foods to see which he likes the most.
First of all, little turtle pellets. These are the normal foods you feed your turtle. Nothing crazy, but they provide some alright nutrients. Right away, he picked up the scent and ate one of them. Then he continued to eat a bunch more. In fact, he was loving it so much that I even tried to do some tricks with him by dropping a pellet into his mouth. And yeah, he doesn't really have a good reaction time.
Okay, yeah, he definitely likes those, but next up, I've got a little cricket doused in calcium powder, which I'm just gonna go and put on the land. You gonna walk out? There you go.
You see, the calcium powder on this cricket not only makes it stand out more, but it also provides the nutrients to keep the turtle shelled nice and strong. Now at first it was just crawling around the land, so I knocked it in the water where the turtle, then it ate it. I didn't even get to capture the strike on camera since it was so fast, but yeah, you can see he thoroughly enjoyed it and even ate some scraps off the floor.
Okay, this guy likes to get his protein in, I like that, but he also has to get his fruits and veggies, or I guess just veggies, but I'm gonna try and feed him this carrot. Let's see what happens.
So I waved it in front of him for a second until he gave it a bit of interest underwater. He went up to it and bit it a couple times, but each time he bit it, he would just end up letting go. I guess his bite wasn't strong enough to cut off the carrot, so I cut a little piece off myself and put it in front of him. He then bit it, gave it a little taste, and ultimately just spat it back out. He's just like me, leaving his vegetables on the plate as he swam away.
Alright, now let's do some worms. And before I touch that thing with the dirt, let's just warm the turtle up to worms by feeding him some of these blood worms.
bloodworms.
Now, you may already know this, but bloodworms come in these little packets and are frozen. But when they're put in water, they start to thaw out and scatter worms all over the place. So I waved them around in front of him like everything else, and immediately he snapped at it and basically ate them whole. Out of everything I had fed him so far, it seemed like he was enjoying this the most. So it was time to upgrade them with some giant nightcrawler worms now. You see, what I did was let a few go down into the dirt on the land area to hide in there. Then I got another worm and waved it around in front of the turtle to convince him to come up to the surface. Once he was there, I waited hoping he would do something, but he kind of just stood there, not stomping on the floor to convince the worms to come up. I even waved a worm in front of his head, and when he didn't show any interest, I put a whole pile of worms in front of him, which he still didn't care about. I guess for some reason he's only hungry in the water. So after he jumped back in, I waved a worm in front of him again, and literally instantly, yeah, he grabbed it and for like 3 minutes battled with it to eat the whole thing up. It was pretty funny to watch, actually. You see, normally these wood turtles are supposed to do this: stomp on the ground, which simulates raindrops, which for some reason causes the worms to surface. And when they do, the turtle gets a nice tasty meal.
But I guess my guy's a little bit lazy and he doesn't want to do that. But that's okay because he's cute.
If 1,000 ants had to fight a black widow, what would actually happen? Would the spider's venom come out on top, or would the sheer number of ants overwhelm her? Well, in this video, I'm gonna test ants against that and tons of other interesting scenarios to see how strong ants really are.
The only problem is I don't have 1,000 ants.
And I bought the most expensive shipping option to make sure the ants would arrive without any dying during the shipping.
Oh, I am so excited. As long as I got a good species, it's gonna be so fun to watch these go against a black widow and everything else I have planned for them.
Anyways, I brought them to the recording area and opened up the package, and I was kind of surprised by what I found.
Nah, are they in here? Oh my gosh, okay, there actually is like 1,000. Okay, at least I didn't get scammed.
Since they were in a pill bottle, I couldn't really get a good look at them, so I got a clear container and dumped them all inside. Instantly, you could now see the true scale of what 1,000 ants actually looks like. And at least, I think it's 1,000. I'm not counting all these guys. And after analyzing the species, I realized that these were harvester ants, which are equipped with venomous stingers and massive mandibles, meaning yes, this was actually going to be a very interesting video with everything I was going to test.
Now, for these 1,000 ants to be able to fight a black widow, we first need to get them in a nest. And well, everyone say hello to the Terra jar. It's like Terra Green, except I replaced the green with a jar. Anyways, let me go and dump all these guys in here. Be free, everyone. This is way bigger than that tiny pill bottle you were in.
Right away, you could see the ants starting to move around on top of the soil. Now, you might be thinking that this isn't enough space for the ants. Well, it actually is, because this is specifically designed for the ants to dig out tunnels all along the sides of the glass. And as the video progresses, we're gonna see their nests get crazier and crazier. And yeah, most of the ants were kind of going crazy trying to climb up the glass, but after leaving them alone for only a few hours, you could see they were already starting to construct their tunnel system. Each of the worker ants would pick up singular grains of sand from the tunnels, walk up to the surface, drop the sand, and go back down to repeat the process. And when you have 1,000 ants, you can see they dig out a pretty good amount in only just an hour of this time-lapse footage.
Oh yeah, it's sick to see the ants already starting to build their nest, and it should be fully dug out by the end of the video. Anyways, as you know, I'll be putting these guys to the test against a black widow. But before then, I have all of these different training activities to prepare the ants for the final spider boss. Second up, we're gonna see how fast they can take down some prey. Yup. We've got a cricket. Oh my gosh, crickets hate me, and sorry buddy, you are gonna be, well, I guess you guys will just see what's about to happen.
And well, right after dropping the cricket in, literally within like a nanosecond, the ants were swarming it. I thought it would only take like a couple minutes, but no, this cricket was already pinned down, getting venom injected into him. As I said earlier, each of these ants is equipped with a venomous stinger that is obviously not super deadly to humans, but to crickets, when there's like 20 ants repeatedly stinging you, you're kind of done for. Yep, ants don't play around when there's a threat near their nest, and you can see over the next 30 minutes, the cricket stayed completely surrounded by the ants. And I'm guessing they already started to rip its antennas off and stuff to get a tasty meal to spread with the rest of the colony.
Dang, that was cool to watch. Anyways, it's getting late, so I think I'm gonna go and put this bucket on top of the ants so it's dark for them. Now I'm gonna go to sleep, and hopefully when I wake up, there's gonna be tons more tunnels. Anyways, yeah, I'll see you guys in the morning.
And over those next 10 hours, the ants made their tunnels so much larger and more intricate than before. And on the back, they even had tunnels all the way down at the bottom, with ants actively walking about the whole system.
Anyway, ants, it's 8 a.m., and that means it's time As you can see, the alarm's going off. It's time for challenge number 3. Let's get these ants trained even more.
For this training, I have to pick up one unlucky ant and transport him to the antlion pit. If you don't know what an antlion is, well, this is it. It's just a tiny little bug that has actually evolved over millions of years to be an expert at taking down ants. Basically, when you go and put them on the floor, they start to dig themselves under the ground, and then they just go around digging. And I have 9 more of these guys, which I spread across the whole tank. And as you can see, they all dig around, making these little lines in the ground. But after waiting a few hours, you can see that each of the antlions had actually dug out their own little pits in the ground, and when an ant walks into the bottom of them, they're basically cooked.
All right, ant, I'm gonna put you right at the start. And at the end, I'm gonna put some breadcrumbs so you can bring back to the colony if you survive this.
And without further ado, I let the ant loose. Let's see if he can get the bread to feed the colony. Immediately, he started to explore around the sand area. He had no idea that he was constantly walking near these pits of death. And eventually, he took a wrong step and stumbled inside of one. These pits are specifically designed to make the ants trip into them, but the antlion at the bottom must have been sleeping or something, because nothing happened and the ant was just able to walk out. But if you look closely, this caused the antlion to wake up. He was now active and armed, with his mandibles now throwing up sand in case the ant walked in again. And over the next few minutes, the ant did just that. He kept walking inside of the pit, but the antlion just could never quite snap on the ant at the right time. Well, that was until this. You see, this is paused footage, but basically if we unpause it, you can see exactly what happens when an antlion gets a hold of the ant. The antlion started to bring the ant underground, and within a few seconds, it was like there was never anything even here. I thought it was over, and you could tell by the sand moving that the ant was getting pulled further and further underground. But all of a sudden, I saw this. A little bit of the ant's head had poked out of the ground. He somehow was fighting back, and must have been using its stinger to try and escape. I immediately rushed back and recorded with my other camera, and what I saw was so weird. The ant had somehow made it out from under the sand, but it wasn't trying to escape. In fact, it was using its front legs to try and dig back under the ground.
Bro, what the heck? Why is this ant digging like a dog? He's literally using his front legs to dig in the sand where he almost just got killed. Bro, this guy's crazy.
Nah, bro, if you want to be eaten by an antlion that bad, I will gladly put you right there.
Have fun, buddy.
And right after putting him in this pit, this antlion also woke up and eventually snapped at the ant. And it once again started to pull him underground. But miraculously, this ant was able to fight back once again and somehow broke free, immediately ran out of the hole and straight over to the breadcrumbs to claim his prize. Nah, this ant tricked me to have me move him closer to the bread, and now he somehow won the challenge.
Nah, bro, there is something up with these ants. I'm being dead serious. How on earth did he escape the antlion pit over here? And how on earth did he escape this one and then know to go to the bread? And now he's trying to bring bread back to the colony. Bro, well played. You survived. I'll bring you and all the bread back to the colony.
So I brought it all over to the nest, and the entire colony was clearly super excited because they all swarmed the bread and started taking little pieces of it underground. Anyways, I went and waited a few hours and came back to find the nest even bigger once again. The ants still are not done with their training sessions, and next up, we gotta see if they can survive some Venus flytraps for some food. So I immediately picked up some of the workers to bring them to the flytrap minefield, completely decked out with tons of Venus flytrap plants.
For the food on this obstacle, we got a gorilla. I'm just kidding. I don't know why it's packaged in this. Basically what it is just a bunch of oats, and I'm just gonna feed these to the ants. Let's put them inside.
You see, each Venus flytrap has these tiny little trigger hairs inside of them, and when something touches them, it causes them to close. And if I carefully put the oats in between the hairs without hitting any of them, I can basically just put the food in here, which will make the ants have to carry them out. But it was actually pretty hard to get the oats perfectly inside, so I ended up just spreading the oats everywhere around the tank.
All right, let's see how the ants do in here. I have a feeling they're not gonna do too well, but yeah, we'll see.
Immediately, the ants had started to swarm out the tube that I'd put them in, and they were probably really confused of why they were all just transported away from their nest. And for a little while, they kind of just walked around, investigating their new environment. But that was until a couple minutes later, where this first ant walked up to a Venus flytrap plant. He probably had no idea that these plants were basically alive and wanted to eat him whole. Thankfully though, this guy was able to walk out of the plants without triggering any of the traps. However, a few minutes later, this ant walked up to another one of the plants, and well, this time all I'll say is he wasn't as lucky. Surprisingly, he wasn't super attracted to the oats, but it did seem like he may have been attracted to the traps themselves. You see, Venus flytraps create a very thin layer of nectar around the lip of the jaw jaws to lure insects in. And eventually, this ant ended up, well, walking into one, hitting a trigger hair, and just like that, he was now stuck inside of the jaws. As you can see, the ant was just walking around inside trying to escape, and he had no idea what to do. Too bad for this guy. This trap is going to release a type of acid over the next few days to basically just turn him into some nutrients to make the plant even stronger. Now, interestingly enough, pretty much all the ants I had put inside were staying away from the traps and were all grouped up around this corner. In fact, they were actually starting the process of digging some more tunnels. Now, these ants still think they're in the nest. They're just trying to dig. Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty smart if you're not getting eaten by the traps. Because over the next 20 minutes, only one single ant came across another Venus flytrap. This guy. Let's call him Larry. Now, Larry is a daredevil because he was walking all over the jaws of all of these plants, absolutely risking it for the biscuit. But eventually, Larry's luck ran out because of this happened. The jaw had closed on him, leaving half of his body stuck out of it. But this was actually pretty good for Larry because it means he had a chance to escape. Using all of his strength, which albeit is not very much, he tried pushing himself out of the jaws. But the trap is designed to just get tighter and tighter as time goes on, meaning this ant was doomed. Well, not actually, because I kind of felt bad for Larry, so I cheated nature and used my tweezers to open the trap. I safely got Larry out and brought him back to the rest of the colony. Anyways, that training actually went really well. Every single ant survived except one. So I brought them all back to the nest and gave the whole colony a bunch of these little gorilla oats to show my support. As you can see, it didn't take long for some of the ants to start moving the oats down to their intricate tunnel systems. And speaking of these tunnel systems, the last training session I'm putting these ants through before the Black Widow is a flood simulation. Yeah, I'm flooding this ant nest.
Well, kinda, because if I actually flooded this thing, it would kill every single ant. So instead, I've got this thing called the Little Dripper, which as you can see, drips some water droplets very slowly.
Yeah, it might seem kind of lame, but this little bit of water should be enough to eventually collapse part of the ant's tunnel system. And if it does collapse, if they can fix it quickly, it means they would have passed all my training missions, and that means they're ready for the Black Widow. So I immediately started to drop the little droplets of water. And initially, the ants were very confused. Some of the droplets were hitting the ants and making them get completely drenched in water. But to my surprise, it almost seemed like the ants wanted to get wet, because more and more of the ants started to gather around where the water was dropping, and eventually a whole pile of ants was getting completely soaked by it. You see, ants are amazing in their ability to work as a team, and in the wild, if a real flood occurred, a massive ant colony would literally join together to make a raft out of their bodies. And that way the important stuff like the queen and eggs could stay on the top and stay dry to ensure the future of the colony. And on a mini scale, this is sort of what the ants are doing here. They're joining together to make a shield out of their bodies that will prevent the water from getting into their tunnels where all the eggs are stored.
Wow, ants are actually amazing. I was totally expecting these tunnels to just collapse from the water, but it seems like ants have literally evolved to do pretty much anything. I'll remove this water. I don't want to do any more harm. You guys proved to me you're very capable.
They instantly took down the cricket, somehow escaped the ant lions, survived the Venus flytraps, and even survived a flood. And throughout that process, they managed to build an awesome nest with a thriving colony.
It is safe to say these ants are ready for my escape. Yeah, don't tell my mom.
But anyways, I went and put the Black Widow in a container so you guys could get a good look at it. And as you can tell, it has that insane, iconic red hourglass abdomen. Wait, sorry. This is my pet robot Black Widow. This is not the real one. Here is the real Black Widow. As you can tell, it's extremely creepy. And under its glossy black abdomen is where the red hourglass is located. These guys have an insane amount of venom, so if it even bites a single ant, it's safe to say it's gonna be a goner. Anyways, here is the tank where the final battle will take place. I went and put a few sticks from my backyard, then I put in the Black Widow. Immediately, she started climbing all over the sticks, and I went and waited a little while she sort of settled in and found a nice spot to rest. Once she did, I went to the ant nest, scooped a good amount of the workers into a tube so we could get this battle started.
Let's get these ants in here. Let the games begin!
Immediately, the ants started to run out of the tube and down onto the sand. When pretty much all of the ants had made it down to the sand, some started to make their way over to the Black Widow, which was just perched right above them on the sticks. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm a pretty impatient guy, and I couldn't bear to wait for the battle to start. So I literally picked up the stick myself to bring the spider down to the ants. Immediately, the spider started to run around, and none of the ants really noticed besides this guy. That kind of bit the spider's leg or something and scared it away. The spider tried to escape as fast as it could by climbing climbing the glass, but it was too slick. Once a few other of the ants had noticed a black widow was on the ground, they started to jump it. And it was actually pretty funny to watch because as you can see, there's barely any ants and the spider was so scared trying to run away at full speed. Bro, you're like the most venomous spider in the world. Why are you not just fighting back? And yeah, a couple of the ants just kind of continued to terrorize the Black Widow. But the thing is, all of the rest of the ants were kind of just doing their own thing at the other side of the enclosure. I had to make this more interesting, so I had a better plan. I went and picked up all of the ants to bring them back to the nest.
All right, well, I got the Black Widow from the tank. And hey, the title did say 1,000 ants versus Black Widow. Let's actually put this to the test against 1,000 ants.
And well, I dropped the spider inside, and it immediately started going crazy, running everywhere. And obviously, the ants did not act kindly. Every single worker went on red alert mode and jumped onto the spider, grabbing her with their mandibles and repeatedly stinging it over and over. As you saw with the cricket, ants do not mess around with stuff in their nest. And to my surprise, the Black Widow did not even get a chance to fight back. It's actually pretty crazy how quickly the ants had pinned it down and started to devour it. And yeah, well, that's literally all that happened. And that should answer your question of who wins in a fight. 1,000 ants definitely wins, and they basically beat everything. There's a reason why ants are the secret king of the animal kingdom, because there's quadrillions of ants around the world.
Oh, one final thing. I have an important message to all the kids and families and parents watching out there. Because
this is a toe biter. Yeah, might sound funny, but these little bugs live in lakes and spend all day eating everything they lay their eyes on. And to humans, they're known for injecting venom into toes, causing extreme amounts of pain. And you already know, the delivery drivers worked overtime to get these to me as soon as possible. So I cut it open so I could get out the containers. Supposedly, the bugs were inside.
all right, let's see these. Oh, shoot. No, this thing's massive.
Since it was kind of hard to get a good look at them in these containers, I got out this temporary tank and put them in. I was very careful because supposedly these guys have wings, meaning they could just fly out to my toes and start biting them if I wasn't careful. Anyways, now we can really see how absolutely vicious these guys are, with their insanely sharp pincher forceps that they actually use to latch onto prey in the wild. Then, using a little sharp mouthpiece they have, they inject a special type of venom into prey that turns the inside of their body into liquid, that they then proceed to slurp up like a smoothie.
Yeah, I really hope these guys don't escape while making this video. But anyways, let's just build them a home and keep them as pets.
This can't go well, but the first step is to make the background of their home. To make this look good, I wanted to put this black board along the back. That way the tank would have more of this dark feel that matches how creepy the toe biters are. Then I got out some spray foam. Yep, wouldn't be a Terra Green video without it. But this time I used the foam to connect all these pieces of cork bark along the back to add some sort of natural feel to it. I even went and covered all the excess spray foam with some dirt so it wouldn't be as ugly.
But the coolest thing is, as you can see, is I actually hid some of these plant pots along the top. Basically, it's gonna allow me to plant some beautiful plants in here, and it's just gonna be super luscious by the end of the video, probably.
But to really complete this backdrop, we need to add these. These are called sticks. Yep, and we're gonna put these along the back wall. If you didn't know, sticks are really cool because they grow from trees, and they're actually made of wood. I'm just kidding, guys. I know you guys all know what sticks are. I don't know why I'm explaining this. Anyways, yeah, I put so many of these sticks along the back because I really wanted to make this place look like some underwater mangrove swamp with so many roots everywhere.
I'm already loving how this is coming together, and we're not even on step 2, which is actually to make the floor and decorations.
For this build, I just wanted to use this simple gravel material for the floor. But along with it, I've also got this, which I've never actually used before. It's a little underground cave that goes up against the glass. Basically, after we go and fill up the rest of this floor with gravel, you can see this cave stays as an open area that stuff can go inside. And maybe our toe biters will come and chill in here, or maybe some of the prey we add will come and hide in here, for as long as they can, of course.
Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't add any of this aqua soil like I usually do. And well, that's because I'm not gonna put any sort of plants in here this time.
Instead, I want it to look like some abandoned swampy area with super murky water. And we do that by putting a ton of natural materials around, like this big driftwood piece coming out the middle, and then a bunch of smaller stuff, like these dead leaves, some mini pine cones, and little sticks.
But most importantly, I've got some beta miracle leaves. Oh yeah, I don't know why they're called miracle leaves, but hopefully they spread some sort of miracle around the tank, something like that, surely.
But actually, I kind of do know why these are called miracle leaves. Because if I go and fill up this floor area with just a bit of water, you can see over the span of about an hour, it starts to turn into this brown, murky color. That's because those leaves and all the other natural stuff I added inside is spreading around tannins in the water, which turns it this color. And it's actually super healthy for any fish or bugs that would live in here. Dang, the more you know. Anyways, I drained that while I continued on with the build by putting in a few lava rocks and covering them in a bit of the sphagnum moss, which I also put all over the background of the enclosure.
Finally, the most important decoration is some little mini plastic boots. Yeah, because we all know at the bottom of every lake and stuff, they just got like boots and stuff. At least that's what all the fishing games I've played have told me. Yeah, I got some pretty cool decorations, as you can see. I'm just gonna put that there.
Now for my favorite part of each of these weird pet videos, the DIY decorations. And for the first one, let's make some pictures. Yep, I literally went out and bought these mini dollhouse picture frames. I'm just gonna scatter all around the enclosure with funny pictures of toe biters.
And to make some funny pictures, I gotta do some photoshopping. I'm a Photoshop master, so this should go pretty well.
First of all, I used my expert skills to make a picture of a toe biter eating one of its favorite foods ever, a frog. Yes, they actually eat frogs in the wild. Then I made this picture of a toe biter flying in the air with beautiful angel wings. Because yeah, like I said, they can actually fly with their actual wings, but they don't look as majestical as these angel wings, of course. Finally, I found this picture of what it looks like when a toe biter lays eggs. Yeah, apparently they literally keep them on their back until they hatch. So I put a bunch of baby toe biters all around this mom toe biter.
Then we just gotta go and print out these fantastical pictures. And yes, I finally got a printer at my house, so I don't gotta go to the store no more. And wait, no, what the heck is this, bruh? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I forgot you gotta buy color for the ink. Okay, I guess I gotta go to the store anyways. Please do that, by the way.
Yeah, so I drove to the printing store to get the photos instead. Anyways, when I got home, I cut out all the little images and put them inside their frames. As you can see, I obviously have the ones I photoshopped, but I also found this picture of all the toe biters' favorite foods, like insects and fish, so they can daydream about them all day. And I also found this picture on Google of some crazy person who willingly let this thing bite him. Why the heck would you do that, bro? I don't know, I just thought I had to put this in. Anyways, for the next DIY build, I'm gonna make some signs. Yep, I literally went out and bought all these random pieces of wood so I could burn some cool patterns on them with my super hot wood burning pen. With the first sign, I made it say, beware of the biter. And I even put a little bit of eye emojis at the bottom. You know, I just thought those looked cool. And then on the second sign, I made it said, rest in peace to all the insects and fish that enter this tank. Because as you know, toe biters do not take kindly to those kind of things.
And I could just go and put these inside of the tank. I kind of want them to look like signs. So I got these sticks that I use for the background, which I'm gonna go and hot glue to the back of them.
Once they dried, I stuck the two signs in the floor and got out the final sign that I was gonna make a pattern on. This time, I stuck these little wooden letters onto the sign to write toe biters. Then I completely burned all the letters black so they stood out.
All right, let's just hang that right there. And oh, that's actually fire. Hold on, wait, that's actually on fire. Oh, no, I'm just kidding, guys. It's just some editing. Yeah, don't worry, but it is actually fire. That's pretty cool.
And now the build only needs one more thing. Some plants to put in those pots that I had at the top of the enclosure. Instead, just got out these terrarium plants that I had sitting in my garage. Listen, guys, I tried to go to Walmart. I know you guys get mad at me whenever I don't, but hopefully this is good enough for you guys. And anyways, once the plants were inside, I filled it up with water. And as you can see, it turned super brown from all the tannins, of course, which is perfect. That's exactly how I wanted it. And yep, this is now 100% complete. We don't need a filter or anything because toe biters are extremely resilient to water. So the next thing is to literally just get these guys inside.
Okay, I gotta be extremely cautious with this. I have no idea how I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna, okay, 3, 2, 1, quickly pick it up. Oh, they both fell off. No. Okay, they're swimming around. I gotta put this back on top so they don't fly out.
So I instead went with a different approach and moved the cork bark to the new tank and instead used this net to try and transport the toe biters without them flying away.
Okay, move. Okay.
Thankfully, it was a little bit more successful, so I did the same with the other toe biter, and you can see they both just swam straight down to grab onto something, and they stayed completely still. But they do this for a purpose. You see, toe biters have evolved to have the exact same pattern and shape as a dead leaf, and they stay completely still till some prey swims by them. Then they pounce on it.
So you already know, let's test the 3 food sources with these guys, starting with the smallest, which is actually mealworms, which I got right here.
Mealworms are one of the most common foods for the kind of pets I keep, so I had a feeling these guys would definitely enjoy them. First of all, I dumped one in the water with some tweezers and waved around in front of this guy. And instantly, he dashed off of his rock towards it, and it actually scared me a bit, but he didn't even actually end up attacking the mealworm. So when he found a new spot to go and rest, I did the same exact thing. And this time, he struck at it, and he scared me so much, I actually dropped the tweezers with the worm. I don't know why this scared me. I'm literally using tweezers, but yeah. Anyways, on the third attempt, this is what happens. He went and grabbed the mealworm with his claws, and he actually got a good grip with it. Then he brought out his sharp mouthpiece and started finding a good spot to poke into the worm with. Eventually, he made the bite, and as I said earlier, they inject a special digestive enzyme into their prey that turns the inside of them into a liquid that they then proceed to slurp up like a smoothie. And yeah, this must have been a tasty, tasty smoothie.
All right, I'm gonna give mealworms a 7 out of 10 because those toe biters liked them kind of a lot. But next up, we got an even bigger insect. We got some roaches, baby. I think there's roaches in here. Oh yeah, right there. You see them?
I wanted to make this one quick, so instantly I put one of these roaches in front of the second toe biter, and almost immediately he pounced onto my tweezers totally, and he just like would not let go. I think he didn't even see the roach, so I just knocked him off the tweezers and tried again. This time he actually grabbed the roach, but he also grabbed onto my tweezers again and straight up just would not let go. So I kind of just set the tweezers down while he ate the roach, and you can see this guy was also absolutely slurping this up and probably enjoying it a lot.
All right. I'll give roaches a 8 out of 10. It seemed like they like them a little bit more. But now it's time for the toe biters' real favorite food, or at least that's what I've heard. You see, insects are great and all, but in order for my toe biters to be healthy and thriving, they need to eat fish because that's what they eat in the wild mostly.
And thankfully online, there's tons of websites that sell feeder fish just for this purpose. So I bought 2 of them so we can get our pet toe biters their proper nutritions. The next day, they got delivered, so I got them ready to feed.
All right, let's do this. And I even got my GoPro so I can get some nice underwater shots of these toe biters eating. Let's dump one of these fish inside.
The fish that I had put inside immediately started swimming around. But little did he know that this was the home of my pet toe biters, which were secretly sitting right next to him, watching his every move. And only a couple minutes later, he got a little too curious and started swimming near the toe biter. The toe biter was preparing to strike, but he had to wait for the perfect opportunity in order to not scare the fish away. And when the moment was right, he pounced off the rocks and missed and scared it away. Bruh, come on, I thought you were a master hunter. So instead, 5 minutes later, I decided to just help him out by feeding him with some tweezers. There you go, boy. Hope you enjoy. And yeah, this seemed like it was probably his favorite food, and he would not let go. But since it's easier and nicer to feed insects, I'll mostly stick to them, and I'll just have fish be a special occasion for when they need the proper nutrients. Anyways, this is pet toe biters. Hope you guys learned something new. In this video, I've collected the 7 weirdest species of fish to keep as pets. I've got species like one that literally has no eyes, the smallest in the entire world, and even a fish that can walk on land. Yeah, these fish are weird. But to start us off, the first weirdest fish is in this container. This is an archer fish, and all I'll tell you is this guy isn't called an archer fish for no reason. It has an absolutely insane special ability. So to get started, I got out a giant fish tank to build its home. I started with the basics like soil and sand, but started adding tons more decorations like rocks and tree branches. And I even put some overhanging branches, as this is very important for the archer fish. You'll see why in a second. Finally, I filled up the tank with water and it was ready for the archer fish. Hope you enjoy your new home, boy. It's nice in here. Now, archer fish are very territorial, so he immediately started to swim all around the tank to make sure he was alone. And when he realized he was, he swam up to the top of the tank to start patrolling the branches. You see, this species doesn't eat normal fish food. They only eat live insects. So I got out a bag of small crickets and put them on top of the tree branches. And this is where the special ability kicks in. The archer fish immediately noticed the crickets and got into position. And after barely sticking its mouth out of the water, it shot out a stream of water to try and hit the crickets off the branch into the water. Yes, this fish has literally evolved over millions of years to shoot literal water beams at overhead insects so it can eat them. And this guy, well, he's got pretty bad aim. Yeah, he kept missing the easiest shots.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
But eventually he knocked one in the water and swam right up to it to gulp it up. And yeah, he wasn't good at that either, but he eventually got it.
Oh, You got it. Dang, that was actually super cool.
That guy's gonna be an amazing pet, and in this video, there's still 6 even weirder species of fish to show. In this next one, well, you're just gonna have to see it for yourself. These are eyeless cavefish, and as the name suggests, these fish quite literally have no eyes. You're probably wondering how it even eats food, swims, or does anything. I don't really know, but I guess we're gonna find out. But first, I got out the tank and started to attach rocks to the back because I wanna make this fish tank look like a cave, because, you know, we're putting eyeless cave fish in here. We gotta make it look like their natural habitat. And once all the water-safe spray foam dried, I filled the bottom up with a bit of soil, sand, plants, decorations, and all that stuff.
Alright, so I was trying to make this look like a cave, and it's not the absolute best, but hopefully you get the vision. You know, it's a cave.
Anyways, I filled it up with water and got the weird eyeless fish out.
Okay, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of confused on what these guys are gonna do when I put them in here. I mean, they literally don't have eyes, so are they just gonna like swim right into a rock and get brain damage or something? I don't know. I guess we'll see though.
So I released them in one by one, and as I expected, this guy straight away swam right into a rock. But apparently that was just a one-off occurrence because for the most part they actually acted pretty similar to normal fish. So before I fed them some food, I did some research to figure out how they act so normal and figured out it's because they have this thing on their body called a lateral line system. Basically, it's a bunch of nerves that can detect super slight water vibrations and help them navigate around.
Okay, now this is the fun part. Since these guys are blind, we're gonna see if they're actually able to even eat food. I got these pellets.
So I sprinkled them in and they started to sink to the bottom. And almost immediately, the fish's insane scent of smell kicked in and one started to go crazy. And within seconds, the rest of them joined in, and as you can see, they were going insane, eating up all the food off the floor like a bunch of piranhas. Yeah, eyeless cavefish are super cool and super weird, but we still got way more fish that are even weirder, including one that can walk on land. But next up, I've actually got 2 different weird species I'm gonna pair together. In this container, I've got both glass catfish and upside down catfish, which, you know, are both catfish, so they fit pretty well together. Anyways, before I show you how weird these species are, we gotta first, of course, build another tank, and this one's pretty similar to the first. Sand, rocks, wood, stuff like that, you know, and I wanted to especially make this one look like a swamp, so I even made sure the water was a little murky, and then I was done. So the first weird fish I put inside was the glass catfish, and if you're wondering why they're called glass catfish, it's because they're literally made of glass. I'm just kidding. They're actually made of fish, but they're called glass catfish because they're completely see-through, if you're wondering. If I put my finger behind the fish, you can literally see it through it. That's pretty weird, you gotta admit. Anyways, while these guys adjusted to the tank, I also added in the 2 upside-down catfish I had. Now, this will probably be a shock to some of you, but they're actually called upside-down catfish because they swim upside down a bunch. Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. Now, the reason to why they do this is because their favorite food is algae, and when they're upside down, they get access to the parts of rocks other fish can't reach. It's actually pretty smart. Now, normally if I was upside down this long, I'd get a headache, but I guess they're fish, so I don't know if fish get headaches, to be honest.
Alright, now I could just feed these guys just, you know, normal fish pellets, but I think it'd be a lot more interesting to feed them something cool so we can see the food inside their bodies. So that's why I've got this. Apparently it's just some frozen turkey heart, daphnia, and spirulina. Yeah, I don't know what any of that is, but it's probably gonna be cool to see inside their body. Let's drop it in.
So I dropped in a few of the cubes, and immediately they started to dissolve into a bunch of tiny little food that floated around the tank. A few of the ghost catfish immediately went and picked it up off the floor and slowly started to chew it up and swallow it. But after they swallowed it, I couldn't see the food in their body anywhere, and apparently that's because their stomach is actually right here. Yeah, I don't know why they have the stomach so close to their mouth. Like, what if they sneeze too hard? The stomach might just like fall out or something. Well, now that the catfish have been fed, it's time for weird fish number 5, which is easily one of my favorites. The 5th weird fish is in this container. Yeah, I know it looks like there's nothing in here, but that's because this thing is called an Amazon leaf fish. It literally almost never moves, and in fact, the only way you can tell it's a fish is its super tiny fins and its eyes. But don't let this thing fool you. It's actually a fierce predator that will eat anything. But to show you that, we gotta get its home built. For the tank, I wanted to make it look like the bottom of an Amazon rainforest river or lake or something. Now, I didn't really know how to do that, to be honest, but I just stacked up a bunch of pieces of wood so it looked like tree roots. And after filling it up with some water, you can tell it had this orange hue to it, and that's because I let the tannins from the wood soak into the water because it's super healthy for this fish. So I scooped him up into his brand new home, and immediately he went into hiding. Let's play a little game. You have 5 seconds to find the fish in the tank. Let's go. He's somewhere in here camouflaged. And did you get it? He's right here. Yeah, basically impossible to see, especially when he's in the cloudy, tannin-filled water. Anyways, one of the coolest things about this fish is how it swims. You see, while most fish swim by flapping their back fin around back and forth, this guy needs to look like a drifting dead leaf. So using the super tiny fins, it flaps those barely enough to propel his body around the water. And yeah, it blends in pretty well. Now in the wild, these guys mostly eat live fish, but I'd feel bad feeding them a live fish, so instead I've got another idea for some live prey to feed it. Basically, I got this little toy that apparently lets you hatch your own pet shrimp from eggs, and I'm gonna feed them to the leaf, of course.
All right, everything's set up, and I think there's gonna be some stuff hatching in here in like a day or two, so I guess I'll just come back, cut to them.
Alright, it's been a couple days, and I don't really know if I did this right, but if you look closely in there, there is actually a bunch of those little, I don't really know what they are, but they're swimming around. Something's alive in there, so I'm sure that's a good sign.
So I used a little pipette to suck them out, and as you can see, there's a pretty good amount of them inside of it. Then I just sprayed them all around the leaf fish and waited for him to ambush them, or something like that. But I'm gonna be honest, he didn't really react to them at all, and he didn't eat any of them. But of course he has to eat, so instead I got out a pack of frozen shrimp, which are a lot bigger, and surely he would eat. I dropped them in right next to him, and it didn't take long until he started to suck them up one by one. Looks like he's enjoying it. Anyways, this guy's gonna be a great pet, but there is still 2 more extremely weird fish species, with the last one, of course, being the walking fish. It's very cool. But for now, fish species number 6 is in this container. Yes, this is literally the fish. It is the smallest fish available to buy on the entire internet. It's called a chili rasbora. And no, this is not a baby or anything. It is literally a fully grown adult. I don't even know if it'll be able to eat those tiny little pellets since it's so small, but I guess we'll see. Anyways, for its tank, I bought something to match its size, the smallest one I could find on Amazon.
Oh yes, this is super cool and super big. As you can see, it's about the size of my hand. Okay, it's not big. But for some reason, it looks like a Lego block. I don't know why. And it also came with this bag of supplies, like rocks and some super bad decorations. So yeah, get this trash out of here.
For the build, it was pretty simple. Just some sand, rocks, and little twigs. And after filling it up with water very carefully, it was ready.
Alright, the little thing's ready, but I did just realize that we're actually kind of demoting him. We're giving him a smaller cage. But hey, I'm sure he won't mind. I mean, he's a small guy. Let's just scoop him up. And just be free, my friend. Welcome to your new home.
Now, ignore how the water's a little cloudy in here. I can't exactly put a filter on the tank since it's way too small. But anyways, look at how much the chili rasbora is enjoying his tank. You know, swimming around and stuff. Yeah, he loves it. To feed him, I dropped in some of the pellets like I was saying earlier. And while he was swimming around looking like he wanted to eat them, he didn't actually eat any of them. And yeah, even if he did try to eat them, I don't even think they'd fit in his mouth. Like, to be honest, it's so small, I don't even know if this thing has a brain in its head. It might just be on, like, autopilot, going around in random directions 24/7. Bruh. But anyways, if you thought I was gonna keep this guy in here, you are wrong. That would actually be kind of mean, since they need a lot more room than this to swim around. So I scooped him up and actually added him in the tank with the catfish, since those aren't aggressive at all, and it has the perfect conditions. And I even added in 5 more of the same chili rasbora species, so they could school up and be friends with each other. Very cool. Anyways, that's it for the tiniest fish I could find, but now it's time for the fish we have all been waiting for. The walking fish, which I have inside of the... He appeared in my most popular video, but it's been 6 months, and he's changed a lot, so I want to show you the new and improved Franklin. But before I can do that, I want to build him a new home, since his old home that I built for him is pretty old at this point. So I got out an enclosure and started by putting lava rocks along the middle and using spray foam to seal them up. You see, for walking fish, you need a land area, but also a very shallow water area so they can stay wet and swim around. And first, I started with the water area by putting down some aqua soil, sand, and then some rocks and pebbles to make it look more natural. And I finished it off by sticking around some sticks. See what I did there? Sticking around the sticks? Yeah. Anyways, for the land area, I used some coconut fiber for the base and covered it in a different type of dirt, which will have a more mud-like consistency once water is added. I finished it by putting some sticks around and a little bit of moss. Simple, but good. The final step was to add in water to the right side and then also a bunch of water to the dirt to make it muddy.
Alright, you can see after we added the water, this basically turned into like mud, which is perfect for the mud skipper, of course. But the problem with this is it's super moist and mold can actually grow here super easily. So to fix that, I've got this pack of springtails, which are basically they're little bugs and they eat mold and stop mold from growing. So yeah, I'm just gonna put them in there like that.
Nice. Just like that, the enclosure was finished and ready for Franklin to be added. Welcome to your new home, buddy. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. Now, if you didn't see the previous video about the walking fish, basically, they can swim around like a normal fish as expected, but in reality, they actually spend most of their time out of the water. And as you can see here, he is an absolute expert at that. As long as their skin is wet, they can breathe just fine outside the water, just like a frog or something.
Now, if you guys saw the last video about the walking fish, Franklin is actually deathly scared of crickets, but it's been about 6 months since then, and well, I got some good news, guys. He kind of likes to eat crickets now, and I'm about to show you exactly what it's like. It's actually pretty cool to watch.
So I dropped some inside, and they immediately started to walk along the bank of the water area. Not a great idea, considering Franklin was watching their every move. But even after some of the crickets got extremely close to Franklin, he kind of just ignored them. He wasn't scared of them or anything, but he just wasn't eating them. So the crickets got off lucky today, because I guess Franklin just wasn't hungry. So if you want to know what it looks like when he eats crickets, just imagine a cricket and then imagine Franklin eating it. Yeah, basically that's it. But anyways, Franklin is easily the coolest weird fish in this. I'll be testing everything interesting about termites, even putting them against a mini wood house to see if they'll eat straight through it.
Yeah, should be fun. Now, before we get to the house, I first want to show you guys how termites build their nests, because termites seriously build some of the craziest homes in the animal kingdom. And they build them quickly. Let me show you by dumping these guys in.
Now, instantly after dumping in the termites, you can see just how many there actually was here, just absolutely swarming in this single area. But you could quickly see how multiple started to gather up in this back area near the exposed dirt. You see, I've set up this container to have a thin layer of soil pressed up against this glass floor. And this gap here lets termites squeeze underneath to start digging, meaning we're gonna get to see them dig their intricate tunnels from above. It's a slow process that only works because of the sheer amount of termites, because while a single termite is super small, there are over 1,000 termites right here, meaning work gets done pretty quickly. And over the next 3 hours, the bulk of the termites migrated across the entire floor in this super cool pattern. Dang, that is insane to watch on a time lapse.
Oh my gosh, these termites completely dug this entire area out so much faster than how long it usually takes for my ants to do it. And thankfully, this video is just getting started, because the next fun thing I have planned for the termites is to put a predator with them. And by a predator, I mean I've got this tiny little earthworm that, to be honest, who knows? When it digs under with the termites, what's gonna happen? I mean, they could swarm it, they could just completely evacuate the place. I don't know.
So the only way to find out was to put this little worm inside. Now, almost instantly, it squeezed under the glass floor and started to dig in the dirt as it got closer to the termites. Now, I'm pretty sure termites only eat stuff like wood, so honestly, I didn't even think much would happen. But as the worm got nearer, some of the termites started to approach the worm with the little tunnels they had dug out and didn't initially attack it. In fact, they sort of just ignored that it was even there, just walking from one side of it to the other, acting like it was just some sort of bridge. But then all of a sudden, I noticed tons more of the termites starting to gather around the backside of the worm, almost like they were gonna start attacking it. Even some of these bigger termites marched in, called soldiers, that specifically have these massive mandibles meant to defend the termite nest. But as I kept watching, surprisingly the swarm didn't attack, and well, they kind of just let the worm dig around their nest.
Dang, this is so interesting how the termites are just fine living with a literal worm in their nest. Yeah, they're just not attacking it at all.
Even more interestingly, as I left my time-lapse camera recording, the worm really just learned to coexist with the 1,000 termites. Yeah, I mean, this honestly makes sense. This species of termites literally only eats wood, so there's no reason for them to waste their energy attacking a harmless worm.
Dang, that's cool. Well, I'm guessing you guys are hungry, so for our next test, we're gonna feed these guys some wood. Hopefully, they like it.
But yeah, I don't only have this nice natural piece of bark from a tree, I also have this piece of cardboard. So that way I can test both of these materials to see which is the best food source to feed these guys in the future. And after sliding both of the food sources under the sheet of acrylic, the termites had access to them. And honestly, it didn't take long till some of the termites started to investigate it. Since putting the termites in this nest, they've had like a day with no wood, so I knew for sure they would be hungry. Now, interestingly, there was almost like no termites going up to the actual piece of wood, but there was quite a few checking out out the piece of cardboard, even walking inside the tiny holes on the side of it. You see, termites like this species actually have more than 100,000 microscopic little alive creatures inside their bodies. They're called flagellates, and basically they live inside termite bodies, and as the termite chews wood, these flagellates help to digest the wood and break it up into actual nutrients somehow. But yeah, it's just insane knowing each termite body is basically just a massive house to so many of these unseeable creatures. Now, even though some of the termites were walking inside the cardboard, it didn't actually seem like they were eating either of these food sources yet. Well, that was until this, because I kept my time-lapse camera recording, totally just expecting the termites not to move towards the wood. You can see most of the termites were actually staying near the bottom, away from the wood. But as I kept recording for another half an hour, eventually a couple termites started to walk on top of the piece of bark. And they looked pretty excited, because soon after, a few more termites started to walk onto it. I guess they didn't realize this was food earlier, but since they had now found out, these initial termites that had walked on here started to release a type of special pheromone in the air that signals there was food here. And because the whole colony could sense the pheromones, it literally only took about 5 more minutes until this piece of wood started to get absolutely swarmed. Yeah, it happened so fast, and soon enough, the entire piece of bark was covered from top to bottom in termites. But interestingly, it seemed like this piece of cardboard wasn't getting nearly as much attention from the termites anymore.
Yo, check out this wood. It's getting absolutely swarmed right now. And it may look like the cardboard's not getting eaten, but if you actually look very closely in there, oh yeah, this thing's getting eaten up too.
Yup, that's right, because when I pointed my camera directly to the side of this cardboard, you could tell it was overflowing with termites. It looked like they were just crawling all up inside of it, and when I got some tweezers to peel back the piece of cardboard, well, you could see just how many there actually was inside, which kind of all immediately evacuated once they realized I was peeling this apart, so sorry guys.
Oh my gosh, it's only been an hour and these termites are decimating the wood. Imagine what they're gonna do to the mini wood house when I leave it in there for a week.
And after shaking off all the termites I could, you could see this piece of wood looked quite a bit different, and it looked like it may have even been hollowed out because there was just a bunch of termites walking inside. Anyways, for the final test, before feeding them a wooden house, well, I want to put my termites through a maze.
Yep, termites, I'm gonna be testing your intelligence, and if you actually make it to the end of the maze, I'll reward you with the house.
To make this termite maze, I got out an empty fish tank and I started to cut these lines of plastic to make the shape of a maze. After going and gluing them down, I completely filled the floor up with another thin layer of dirt. If you remember, the termites dug through that first nest I made for them in a cool pattern, so I'm wondering if they're gonna do the same here and if they're gonna take any wrong turns that lead them to a dead end.
All right, then let me go and just put this perfectly sized piece of glass here, and then let me put a piece of bark and cardboard at the end so they'll actually have a goal to get to. Well, let me gather up these termites and I'll move them in here.
And yeah, it was actually quite a bit harder than I thought to move these termites out because how incredibly small they are. So I sort of just resorted to digging up all the dirt I could that the termites were hiding under. I even found that worm that I'd placed in earlier, which is still just living peacefully inside. But yeah, eventually I got all the termites into this little container with dirt.
All right, now I just gotta dump these in here so they can start the maze. Also, what's kind of cool is if you look at the underside of this, all the termites have just started to gather there. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, anyways, I went and started to scoop the dirt into the maze enclosure pretty carefully in order to not hurt the termites. You can see this whole pile of dirt was just absolutely overflowing with tons of termites. But basically, you remember how the termites were just gathering on the bottom of the little container they were just in? The plan here is they're gonna do the same thing and they'll slowly make their way into the maze. Hopefully. Yeah, I don't actually know if this is gonna work. But I set up my time-lapse camera and waited to see what would happen. After not too long, this termite was the first to enter the maze, but somehow he decided to crawl into the walls of the maze, and he sort of started to break through to the other side of the wall. Now, thankfully, this was a dead end, so when the rest of the colony decided to follow this cheating termite, they didn't finish too easily. Over the next few hours, you can really see how the termites learned to follow each other because so many of them ended up at this little tunnel at the top left area, but it was only a matter of time until more of the colony started to go down into the maze, and over the next day, they started to travel closer and closer to the wood end goal. I mean, they still kind of were cheating, but eventually one termite did actually make it to the wood. And yeah, I guess just like that, they had completed the maze. Good job, termites.
Well, since you guys made it to the end of this awesome maze, that of course means you guys get to eat the house now. Let me gather you guys out of here real quick and let's do that.
Yeah, it took a little while, but eventually I got them into another container.
And yeah, you can see how they're all pretty much just gathering up on the bottom once again. Oh my gosh, there's actually so many right there. But anyways, I got the house right here, so let me just, and boom, just like that, the house teleports inside. There's totally no editing involved in that. That was just magic.
Now, I first drilled a hole into the top of this house that I'd eventually be able to record through. Then I also added a bit of dirt around and inside of the house so the termites would want to stay here. And finally, termites need constant moisture to survive. So I'm just gonna absolutely drench this house with my spray bottle. Hopefully this will make it easier to chew through.
All right, termites, I hope you're still hungry. Yeah, I guess let me just try and take this sheet of termites and just start dumping them in the house. And then there's still tons in here, so I'm just gonna go and dump them inside and kind of just all around the house. Let's get this thing absolutely destroyed. Well, hopefully. I don't actually know if they're gonna eat it, but that's the plan.
Now, it's pretty cool to see the sheer amount of termites just swarming every single inch of this house. And you could even see them inside a little bit, but I couldn't see that much since it was kind of dark. So I, of course, set up the time-lapse camera and recorded for many hours. And you can see there was tons of termites that were just walking around the perimeter of the tank investigating what was going on, while others were still swarming around the dirt of the house and also climbing all up inside the hole that I drilled on the top of the roof. But there was no destruction really visible just yet.
Okay, it's been about 24 hours and it almost seems like the termites are doing nothing to this house. You see, the thing that makes termites so deadly to houses is the fact that they completely work out of sight. So let's do a little more investigating on this thing.
So I pointed my super bright studio light through that hole I put in the top, and you could see the termites were in here, but yeah, it was still not super visible inside of here. So I went and pointed the camera through that hole in the roof, and I was even more amazed by the amount of termites all huddling around the wooden walls. You can even see how some of them would rapidly shake their heads. Apparently they do this to signal to the rest of the colony that danger's nearby, but yeah, you can see the walls were starting to look like they were maybe getting a little bit destroyed so far.
Yo, the termites are absolutely swarming inside of there. Hold on, wait, I wonder if they're under. Oh my gosh. That's more than I was expecting. Oh my gosh, there's even more on the underside of that.
Yeah, tons were gathering right here, as you can see. I wasn't really sure if these ones were actually eating the wood or if they were here for just cover. Either way, I kept recording my time-lapse camera, and well, nothing really interesting happened on the outside, as you could probably guess. When I moved the time-lapse camera inside to start to record, you could see how there was so much more action and how they were climbing all over this wall. Surely they were eating it, but if you didn't know, termites are some of the slowest eaters in the animal kingdom, and even with over 1,000 in this 10-hour time lapse, you can't really see a whole lot of damage being made, but you can see some of these termites were making this cool little mud ball out of dirt, saliva, and wood that they spit out. They sometimes will make these little balls in their nest to keep moisture, since, as I said earlier, they need moisture to survive.
Yeah, at this pace, it would take months for the termites to start making noticeable progress through the wood. I would call this video a success. I mean, we literally learned so much about termites, and so yeah, stay tuned for that when I post that.
But in the meantime, we can definitely see the tiny bits of chewing progress they've made since being in here. Pretty cool.
So yeah, stay tuned for the community post. Make sure to subscribe so you'll see it when I post it. And yeah, hopefully you learned something new about termites. Yeah, I guess click the video on the screen and goodbye.